Good evening and welcome, commissioners, participants, and interested party to the January 4th, 2024 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. The meeting is now open. I'm Tom Bell, Chair of the Cohasset Conservation Commission, and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts and Cohasset Wetlands Protection Acts and the Cohasset Stormwater Management Regulations. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and is being held on a Zoom platform. If you have any questions for the commission, put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the page. And when called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. You must include your name and address to be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission, our Conservation Administrator, Angela Giso, and the Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Bechtel. We'll take a roll call vote of Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, present.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McFarland?
Chris McFarland, present.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, present.
So we are expecting our Associate Commissioners, Sanji Fernando and Valerio Romano, to join us sometime soon, I hope. And as Associate Commissioners, they are full participants in the hearings, though they do not have a vote. Tonight, we have a quorum of 5 commissioners. We'll take all votes by roll call and each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Before proceeding to the public hearings, the following items are continued until January 18th. NOI 2328, 31 Bow Street, Stormwater Permit 2318, Deer Hill School, amended NOI 1920, 70 Border Street. That doesn't sound right, does it, Charlotte? Wait a minute. Aren't we doing 70 Border Street? We are.
We're doing an extension. The amended submission's been continued.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. NOI 2332, Stormwater Permit 2325, Cohasset Golf Club, RDA 2326, 808 Jerusalem Road. In addition, those are all continued to January 18th. In addition, NOI 2334, Turkey Hill Road is continued until February 15th. Our first order of business tonight is approval of the commission minutes for meetings of 9/21/23, 10/19/23, 11/2/23, 11/16/23. So we've got a phone book worth of minutes that we need to approve. As a reminder to commissioners, and it's up to you guys, to each of you, to decide this yourselves, you must abstain for meetings you have not attended. So I will make a motion to, I'm going to do these individually because some of you may or may not abstain. So Tom Bell moves that the meeting minutes for 9/21/23 be approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote. And as I said, you need to just figure out whether you were there or not. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland?
McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 5-0-0. The next one is for 10/19/23. I move that we approve the minutes for 10/19/23. Do I have a second?
Second.
With the second, we'll go to the roll call vote. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, abstain.
Chris McFarland?
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
That passes 4-0-1. The next one is minutes for approval. I move that we accept minutes for approval for 11/2/23. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, aye.
Did you say abstain, Will?
Aye, I think.
What's that?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland?
McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0. And the final one for tonight will be for 11/16/23. I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of 11/16/23. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Frank Fronin, abstain.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre abstain.
Tom Bell, aye. And we have a, that passes at 3-0-2. Thank you. So, we've got,
And then we postponed the 7/20/23 meeting minutes probably to the next meeting.
that's right. Angela's not quite done with them apparently. So our first public hearing is for RDA 2325 at 430 South Main Street. The subject is proposed tree removal within the inner zone of the riverfront resource. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for RDA 2325 at 430 South Main Street. The public hearing is now open. Charlotte.
Hi, Barbara, can you hear us?
I can, thank you. Good evening.
Okay, great. So we have Barbara Henderson, who's the applicant. Barbara, I can pull up your plan and your RDA submission. Did you want to walk us through your proposal while I work on that?
Offhand, sure, that's fine, thank you.
Okay.
We have, along, our property is at the corner of Mordecai Lincoln and South Main Street. Our backyard, in essence, is the extension of the Gulf River that would have connected to Hunter Pond, what was Hunter Pond, but is now the stream that is freshwater stream that rolls from the freshwater down into the Gulf. And so we have two trees that are the ash trees, which one is in extremely severe decline. We were able to take off some branches for trimming pre the storm. And even after the storm, there were branches that had cracked and broken off that ash. The second tree is showing the same visible signs of this, something, it's a borer of some sort, that the ash trees. Yes, thank you. So this is a view from my unit looking towards Mordecai Lincoln and the what used to be the antique store of the woman, but the two trees that are noted are the one on the right had a lower limb taken off of that. When that was opened up, apparently a major nest of ants had been a part of, once the tree had died, obviously it's going to be infested. And then the tree to the left also is in decline, and we've had to do minor trimming. The area is not a view for us. Our view is actually looking down the Gulf towards, I guess, towards the access underneath the bridge. Can't see that far, but so this is we've got the driveway that comes along the side there, and so it's one of these things that when things go, there could be a car, it could be the postman. I'm just trying to mitigate that possibility with this request. Any questions?
Would you be replacing the trees? Is there any plan to replace?
I think we'll definitely look at putting in more planting material. I saw that there is the list the Conservation Commission suggests, and we're all on board with that.
And you'd just be cutting them down for safety, you wouldn't be removing the stump or grinding it out?
No, it would go down to ground level, but beyond that, no, because we've got, that actually holds the wall up. That's part of the riverway,
Mm-hmm.
especially the one there on the right.
Other questions, commissioners, comments?
Are there any other ash trees in the area?
There are actually not, well, there might be another one along the river. In fact, maybe the one to the far right that is in that picture that you've got now, that might be an ash there. It's holding on. My neighbors next door heading towards excuse me, yes, heading towards town north, they have a number of the ash trees that are in severe decline. I had sent them a letter just saying that if that, and I believe I can do this, I sent them a letter saying that make them aware of the trees that were in decline, because if they come crashing over our property, I wanted them to be having to take over responsibility for that, but if they don't choose not to remove the trees before. But those are all the same ash. There are probably 4 on that property.
Can you put up the plan for this, please?
So the 2 triangles that are light purple, that's the location of those trees.
And what is that distance there? I see from the corner of unit 2 to a presumably a peg there. I can't quite make out what
I think that's
65 feet. basically.
55, yep.
So the distance to the property, or to the, at least to the unit, is let's call it 55 feet roughly. Those trees are, if I were to estimate from the, and I'm probably not as good at this as Chris McFarland, but I'm thinking they look like they're probably well less than 50 feet high.
The issue is not the building, it's the coming on a car on our driveway that's in the back, on any vehicles that are going in the back there. So we have parking in the front and drive in the back that leads into the garages.
Yeah, it would be a remarkable coincidence for a tree to fall just as a car was passing, it seems to me.
Well,
For that tree on the north.
it's you can, that's fine.
It looks like that tree that you have your cursor on is more likely to be a hazard than the one on the northwest side of it, to the northwest of it.
Sure, because it's closer to the drive area.
And that's the one that you were showing that had the branch that was broken at the top, and
That's correct.
yeah. So have you had an arborist look at these?
Yes, Evan Jacobian has been coordinating with me.
And who would remove these?
Evan Jacobian.
Yeah. We see a lot of that, where an arborist will come in and make an assessment, and then of course they're the arborist that is going to be the contractor, which never looks good to us, I don't think.
This was the, it's more like an email, but this is what we got from Evan, given his professional, opinion. I know it's not like a formal letter, but it's kind of just going through his assessment.
So the trees are still alive, is that correct?
One is, they're both in decline. One is, I'd say, pretty much gone.
Which one is?
The one that had the broken branches at the top.
Yeah, that one looks pretty bad.
The other ones, obviously, I don't think we would have talked about decline if that weren't the case. Evan's not somebody that is a person that goes after purse strings.
Charlotte, do you have any pictures of your own of this?
Yeah.
Don't just.
Sorry, give me 1 second. This is the first tree, the one that's the larger of the 2 in caliper, and the one that's in more severe decline, according to Evan. And then
That'd
this
be
is
a tree on the southern part of.
correct, yeah. So and then this is the other tree, the one that's further away. It's a little bit further away from the driveway. That's kind of the distance for a reference point.
Yeah, so Am I mistaken that this, the main trunk and leader perhaps are inclined more towards Bound Brook than the driveway?
Kind of a tough call. I mean, this branch is definitely leaning over the
Right.
river. But this is kind of mostly upright, maybe leaning just a tad in the other direction, but this obviously side branches, of course, leaning in the other.
So,
At least to me, this seems pretty straight, but
if the branch on the right were removed, then the center of mass would certainly be inclined towards the
Mm.
waterway. Is that right?
perhaps, yeah. It's kind of tough to tell. And I guess, Barbara, the wind direction you were concerned about is coming from where again?
It depends. We've been getting northeasters and then we've been getting the southern winds. So you've got you are looking from the southern side and looking north.
So northeast would take it down onto your driveway.
Correct.
It might, the upper parts of it might reach the driveway.
So this is where you'd see that I wouldn't cut, there would be a stump there because it is holding back the river.
Which tree is this?
That's the split that's on the southern end of the property.
So that looks like the most problematic tree to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely. What does the trunk of the
Size
other one look like? What kind of condition is it in?
I'm sorry?
That tree was a little bit harder to look for the emerald ash, signs of emerald ash, but I think Evan said he still spotted some of the stages up in the upper canopy sections of the tree. But we didn't see any, at least in the lower portion. Like from this first tree, you can see that like all the holes here,
Ants.
yeah.
Yeah, to me, I'm very familiar with the decline of the ash tree, and typically once they begin to be infested, they start to drop branches. The infestation goes from the top down.
Mhm.
And so they start to drop branches until they really just become a post. I've got about 50 of them I can see from my backyard in the woods.
Mhm.
This looks like I'm sure most ash trees in the area have some level of infestation at this point, but to me this tree looks like quite healthy. If we're gonna start cutting down ash trees that have ash borer, we're gonna cut down, we'll cut down all the ash trees. That's it. And if
It
they
looks
have
like there's one branch there, Chris, that might be dead. The brightest one, the third one from the trunk on the right-hand side.
This one?
Not that one, the next.
Nope, the other one?
One more, no, that's the left side. Charlotte, you're on the left. There you go. That one, there you go.
Yeah.
That one looks like it might have some trouble, but then again, maybe it's just the sunlight on it.
Has this one, Barbara, started to drop branches as well, or is it mostly the other tree that has been dropping the branches more on the driveway?
Well, between the two, the one to the south definitely is
Yeah.
been more problematic. This one, not as severely, but yes,
Mhm.
it also stopped. I mean, having one tree down is fine, whatever the conservation feels comfortable with. That one is the worst one. I just, unfortunately, when the trees get infested, they're not going to be growing new trees, and that's so sad. So at some point, I would probably need to reapproach the Conservation Commission and talk about this one. But whatever works for everybody is fine.
Sorry, what did you I didn't catch what you said. They won't be, does that mean they won't grow, they don't drop seeds anymore once they've been infested? Is that what you-
When they're dead, because the trees die completely,
Yeah.
they're not reproducing.
Correct, right. Yep.
So it's unfortunately, I know I grew up in Ohio, we were having a beech tree infestation and pretty much wiped out the beech trees in northeastern Ohio. So
The other thing I would say is that you know, people have come to us for requests for removing trees, dead trees, and our, you know, our response has typically been that even dead standing trees have a ecological value to the wetlands and to the buffer zone. So
I
I would,
see.
I would say that, you know, when it comes to safety, we certainly take that into consideration first, but you know, the death of a tree, it's sad, but it's, you know, it still serves a purpose.
I just remind you, Ms. Henderson, and commissioners, that we're not talking about a buffer zone here. We're talking about the resource. The riverfront is the resource we're protecting here, and we are very reluctant in most cases to allow any alteration of the resource itself. But as Mr. McIntyre said, safety is also a concern of ours, and that thing looks like it's got some widowmakers on it.
Yeah.
And I would lean towards, yeah, take that thing down. The other one, however, looks like it probably has at least some life left to live, and it is farther away from doing very much property damage. It could land on the driveway, and then again, it could land in Bound Brook, which is not a bad thing necessarily. In fact, DMF is quite happy to see trees in waterways that may support migratory fish, gives them cover from predators. So my own feeling is the one on the right there is probably does pose a safety hazard, and it looks like it's pretty well gone by the given all the kind of bare branches there. You've got branches there without smaller branches off of them, and so yeah, it looks pretty bad. So those
I
are my,
agree. I think the only question is, you know, should it be left in the resource area or should it be taken out?
right. Ordinarily, we would say that that would be taken down, and the dead wood spread along the riverbank in as natural a way as possible, and let it rot. It's also habitat and if you will, a source of calories for invertebrates at the very least.
Yeah, I think we didn't walk the specific areas, but I think Evan had some particular areas that we could put it somewhere along the bank. I can try to zoom in on one of my photos where he had some ideas, and obviously we can talk about this as well, maybe as a possible condition, but like further down past this tree, maybe in this area, they could leave some of the felled wood material, so that it's not like, you know, right near the road, but it's definitely still in riverfront.
Well, you might actually benefit from that trunk being laid down parallel to Bound Brook to protect the retaining wall there. It could serve a dual purpose. One, Ms. Henderson, you were talking about the roots supporting the boulder wall there. Perhaps that trunk could actually add some additional protection that could be useful, but still serve its purpose of providing habitat and nutrients. But removal of the dead wood is something that we generally do not allow.
Chris, you may have an answer for this. If you leave more trunk than less, would that slow the decline of root system? Would it hold the bank longer if you were to not take it all the way down to the ground? Or is it all rot the same?
It all depends on the condition of the trunk. I mean, if you cut 3 feet up and it's all infested with ants and it's kind of very porous, then it's actually going to decay faster. But as long as you hit hard wood, as hard as what's left of this ash, it's a little more is a little better, but it's hard to say on this one, you know, if you really have much to gain.
We saw an oak tree come down across the street from us that the ants had actually eaten the roots to the depth of over 5 feet.
Whoa.
You could literally have put a person down there. It was so deep. It was pretty amazing, really.
Wow.
But-
Mr. Chair,
but
sorry for time purposes. It's been about 20 minutes just to
Okay.
give you that.
I think the commissioners, do you have any further comments to make or?
I would just say that there's a lot of tree for a small amount of area that's within the proponent's property. And then we can't ask them to leave it on someone else's property, so we asked them to leave some. I wouldn't expect we would ask them to leave all of both trees.
Okay,
And the issue of replacement, I would like to see, you know, at least 2 trees it's typically a 2-to-1 replacement of trees and not just shrubs, something that will contribute to the system as this tree did, you know, shading the brook and holding the bank.
Kathy and Chris, do you have any further comments?
No, I think that's a fair request.
Okay, so does it, I'm sort of leaning towards leave that north tree alone. Take the south tree out, spread as much of the debris as possible without clogging the waterway along that embankment and still within the applicant's parcel, and call it a day.
With replacement, Tom?
Oh, yes, right. Replacement, 2 trees, I think sounds good.
Ms. Henderson, are you agreeable to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So we're looking at something that may be influenced by a certain amount of brackish water, Chris. So obviously the selection of the trees would need to be as salt tolerant as we've got on our list. So do you have a recommendation there?
I think we do have them on the list. So I'm still on Christmas vacation, so I'm not gonna make a recommendation.
Yeah, you could suggest a tree from the commission's approved planting list. We've done that before to just keep it not so specific in case that species isn't available or doesn't work out. But yeah, if a species from the list.
That would be great.
But Ms. Warner, you should be aware that some trees are more salt tolerant than others, and you don't want to spend money on trees that are going to die. So I'm sure your arborist will be able to look at that list and identify an appropriate species to put in 2 trees. here.
Sure. Thank you.
So with that said, then let me get my script up here. Does anyone care to make a motion here?
Sure, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and to, was this an NOI?
We're going to change things just a little bit. Let me make a motion first to issue a variance to work within the inner zone of the riverfront resource.
Second,
We'll have a roll call vote. Will Ashton? This is for a variance, just to do the work.
Will Ashton, I.
We've decided we've been closing the hearings before we've made our variances, which is a little bit at odds with closing a hearing. So this is just a procedural change. We would have had to do this anyway. So did I get a second? I'm sorry. Will, did you second that?
Yeah, I thought I voted though. Did you ask me to vote? Second, though.
Well, we need a second and now.
Second.
Yeah,
Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0. So now's the time to make a motion for
Okay,
what,
so-
what they can actually do in the riverfront resource.
okay. Charlotte, is this an NOI or is this a RDA?
An RDA.
So this is a,
Positive.
how do we do this one? Because we're doing a partial on this.
Yeah, so there's even though the work is occurring in Riverfront, you can argue it's also technically occurring within the inner buffer zone to the inland bank. Because it's pretty much right on the bank. So you could recommend a -3 and a -6 determination with conditions.
Okay. -3, -6.
Could also technically do -2, -3, and -6 because the area is technically subject to jurisdiction, but the activity will not remove, dredge, fill, or alter the resource area. So yeah, technically it's like -2, -3, and -6.
Say it again.
Sorry.
-3, negative.
-2, -3, -6 for work within a resource area and buffer zone that will not remove, dredge, fill, alter the resource area. And then -6 of no further action under the bylaw.
Isn't -2 no conditions though? So then it's just 3 and
Well,
6?
you can select multiple for a determination, so you can technically probably say it's within a resource area and a buffer zone. So you can select multiple on the form.
Yeah, but I think 2 says no conditions, doesn't it?
Well, 2 doesn't, it just doesn't give you the option to write a condition, but
Oh.
-3 does.
Got it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Glad,
But we are dealing with overlapping resource areas and buffer zones here.
glad you guys stuck your foot into this motion instead of me.
Hey, Chris or Will, would you make a motion? I have a emergency here I gotta take care of.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I will make a motion to issue a -2, -3, and -6 determination with the condition that is the condition that we're leaving the larger not as dead tree. Is that,
Yeah.
and we're planting 2 new
We're,
trees.
we're approving the removal of the single tree that's most diseased, the southernmost tree. And we're also, the condition is that at least the larger trunk be laid alongside the stream bank, presumably to protect that stone wall a bit.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is in terms of the placement of that trunk, as you're speaking of going by the stream, can it go anywhere on our property by the stream? Because there's a wall along the entire length.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I don't think we're so, if you can go anywhere, actually, technically you can go anywhere on your tax parcel.
Okay, thank you.
And the second condition was to replace it with a native tree from conservation's lists, but I think we might have to reread the motion. I'm sorry.
2 trees,
2 trees? Okay,
2 for 1.
okay.
Got it.
I'm
So-
sorry, Will, can you repeat that again for the minutes?
Sorry, I had a minor emergency that may still be going on. We'll see. The, I'm.
Well,
make
you
a
can
motion
kick the
to-
ball back to Chris McFarland. He's off the phone.
Make a motion to issue a -2, -3, -6 determination. Condition that you can remove the southern tree and plant 2 trees off of the whatever the right list is, I forget the name.
Cohasset, tree list?
I'll second it.
We're gonna have a vote finally on this.
Sorry about
Will Ashton,
Will Ash and I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This motion passes 5-0-0. We already did the variance, so I think we are good to go, right, Charlotte?
Thank you,
Excellent.
Barbara. And
Thank
I'll work
you.
on issuing that probably on Monday for you.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Thank you. Have a good night all.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, right along. Our next public hearing is NOI 2333 at 98 South Main Street. The subject is proposed construction and landscaping within the inner and outer zones of the riverfront resource. Remember, the riverfront is a resource, not a buffer. Charlotte, you want to introduce our applicants?
So we have the applicant, Woody Chittick on the phone or on the call, and engineer Jeff Hassett from Morse Engineering, and John Teriyaki. And I'm sorry, John, I'm forgetting your company name.
Same name, Teriyaki Architectural
Teriyaki.
Design.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Hassan. I'm a civil engineer with Morse Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Chittick for an NOI filing for an addition to his home at 98 South Main Street. This property is about a little under 1.9 acres in size. It's developed with a single-family home that was built in 1710, as well as a detached cottage, garage, and a paved driveway. And I'm going to share my screen and kind of point things out as I go. South Main Street is located at the bottom left corner of the page. They have a paved driveway leading to the existing home. They also have a garage and a cottage. And we have the wetlands on the property flagged by John Zimmer. They include at the rear of the property James Brook, which is a perennial stream. So we're showing that called out as a perennial stream, with the 100-foot inner riparian zone shown in magenta and the 200-foot outer riparian zone shown as well in magenta. Mr. Zimmer also flagged a BVW along the easterly side of the property shown in blue. That's a vegetated wetland with a 50-foot buffer shown in red and a 100-foot buffer in green. And then we also have the 9 contour shown more bold, darker. That's the limit of the FEMA floodplain. So the proposed work is and I'll zoom in on that. The relatively small 444 square foot, 1-story addition located here with a deck supported by 3 sonotubes and a pervious patio. We're filing with you because the work is entirely within the 200-foot riverfront area. However, all of the work is outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone, and the amount of disturbance is only 950 square feet, which is allowed under your regulations. You may permit up to 1,000 square feet of alteration. And noting that all of the work is outside of the 100-foot buffer to the BVW, and it's also outside of the FEMA floodplain. So again, we're only within the 200-foot riverfront area. In order to construct the project, there'll be a concrete wall for the foundation, which they only have to go down about 4 feet for frost protection, and then three sonotubes. And then we do have a small retaining wall here that is about 3.5 feet tall at the highest point, just to work with the grades and have a couple steps down to a patio. All of the work is in areas that are currently lawn, and the areas will be immediately restabilized. And we have a 12-inch mulch sock and a siltation fence going around the down gradient limit of work. Construction vehicles will come right down the driveway, utilizing the end of the driveway for any stockpiling or parking. So with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Commissioners, comments or questions?
This is an NOI and is there a stormwater?
No.
No.
I believe it's 446 square feet, Jeff, and then so it's not a net increase of 500 square feet, including the small retaining wall.
That's correct. And in total, it does not disturb more than 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Jeff, you said this is all lawn?
It is, yes.
Charlotte, do you have a comment about whether lawn is developed or not?
So This is a kind of a tricky answer, at least under the Wetlands Protection Act for defining degraded. It does not list lawn. It lists like structures, driveways, like removal and devoid of topsoil, previous dumping ground or abandoned, dumping ground, or there's one more thing, but then it does not include lawn to be considered previously degraded under the Wetlands Protection Act. Our definition of alteration is a little bit wider under our bylaw, but I don't believe we break down previously degraded any further than the Wetlands Protection Act in our regulations.
I just wanted to make that point. That we've seen a lot of arguments that lawn is considered developed, and in fact, by definition, they are not.
Yeah, well, I mean, under the Wetlands Protection Act, they only use the phrase degraded under the riverfront area section.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're certainly taking, in this case and probably many other projects, you're taking lawn and you're converting it to a structure. So that's an increased level of development. But it's not a, it's not a virgin wooded area.
Well, all virgin areas are wooded.
True. You have meadows and
Yeah.
you name it. Yep.
And Phragmites, unfortunately, marshland. And yeah, I just wanted to make that point that as much for the commissioners as it is for the applicant that we have seen a lot of things come through our shop here recently, and people making the argument that lawn is developed property, but apparently it's not. So with that in mind, I think we can just. This is not a big disturbance, from what I can see. So, I mean, it's less than 500 feet.
And
But with that in mind, commissioners should be mindful of this in any case. That the development is on undeveloped riverfront. And it's also worthwhile to be mindful of the fact that the riverfront is the resource, which has a higher degree of protection than buffer zones. So with that in mind, let's consider this case.
And Jeff and John, I believe you had prepared an alternatives analysis. Would you be able to kind of go through that in a little bit more detail? Since this is under redevelopment in the riverfront area under standards 5 under 310 CMR 10.58.
I'm sure. Good evening, John Teriyaki, Teriyaki Architectural Design. I had submitted a summary of the architectural alternatives considering the site plan, and I'm happy to go through them briefly. I think we started off by saying that the house, the original portion of the house, which is the southern wing, it dates to 1710. It's a distinctive historic house, one of the oldest houses in town. So adding anything architectural in that zone was just not feasible without permanently altering the appearance of this important structure. On the eastern side of the house, as you see, the green 100-foot buffer line runs along very close to the house, making it difficult to add anything without crossing into that the 100-foot buffer. And there are also 3 large maple trees on the northeast, southeast, and southwest corners of the house. So those also make it difficult to add anything architectural on those corners. Along the western front of the house, the driveway comes down and there is a fair amount of ledge, and the grade goes up into a ledge hill. And adding anything on that side would impact the driveway, requiring more unintentional development or alteration on the site. And the only location that required the minimum amount of site alteration, worked best with the house, and conceals the addition almost completely from the street without crossing into the wetlands barrier, was the location we picked, which is on the northern side of the house. And that's also where the grade drops about half a level, which also helps minimize excavation. Because we are already half a level down, so we only need to go down to frost level for foundations.
Commissioners, any further comments or questions?
Jeff, could you just slide up on the plan a little bit? Thank you. And elevation 9 is that's the high water line, is that right?
The FEMA floodplain, so the 100-year flood elevation.
Okay.
The,
And that's
the,
is that the current FEMA floodplain or the?
the current.
Yeah,
You know, the normal high water is confined within the bank.
right.
Thank you.
But haven't they already determined the 2030 floodplain?
Maybe not that I'm aware of. This is based on the current flood maps,
Okay.
the effective flood map.
Maybe there's a more practical question for the applicant. Has his backyard ever flooded? I know he's lived there a long time. How far up the bank has that any observed flooding taken place? So I guess this is a question for Mr. Chidick.
Yes, I believe he's, yep.
Yeah,
he's
no, I
joining.
can unmute. In that area, to my knowledge, honestly, it's never flooded, even in the storm of 78. We had no water. I mean, the water sort of stays in the brook and doesn't tend to back up. Obviously, if they open the floodgates down by the Legion, that further drains, you know. But I mean, in all honesty, I've never seen water flood over those banks, even in the worst of storms.
So was 78 when there was a major upstream flood from James Brook, or was that even earlier in in Cohasset history? Maybe
78 was a big storm. I mean, there was, you know, ice blocks all along Jerusalem and Howard Gleason Road and that area of the harbor.
You know, there are pictures of people paddling their canoes in front of French Memories, and I don't remember what decade that actually was.
I don't know about that one. I do have photographs of people paddling kayaks and things near the Oaks, you know, near the yacht club, that kind of thing. But
yeah, seems like there was an issue of at that time that James Brook, the covered part of it was insufficient to carry the flow, and it
downtown.
Yeah, and it overflowed downtown, and then that was the motive for building a larger drainage system.
It's got a culvert, I think,
Yeah,
that goes
box culvert.
Goes under there. I mean, 78 was the worst storm. I mean, it's worse than any hurricane. I've been here since 71, so I've been here 52 years. But the 78 storm was far and away, in my estimation, more severe than any hurricane we've ever had. And I've never seen water back there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen water in the brook. I mean, but I've never seen water on my lawn or.
Yeah.
That's relatively wild anyway. I mean, there are no structures there and I don't mow it, so.
Okay, moving along here. Commissioners, do you have any further comments or questions?
Is there a plan to, looks like the trees are existing to remain. Is that reasonable or is that just a hope?
Well, there's one tree that we're working with in the proximity to. There's a 6-inch tree right here. And we are putting a retaining wall and a patio immediately adjacent to it, probably about 4 feet off. The intent is to try to protect it. You know, it's an ornamental tree that was planted there at one point. But the intent is to keep it.
So there's no other trees being proposed to be removed or anything?
No, we have another tree here well beyond the limit of work. I think it looks like it's a 9-inch. And then there's a large 48-inch maple here that we're staying quite a ways away from. The intent is, those trees will remain.
And there's no landscaping plan this beyond trying to save that tree, or are there any plantings?
Well, that tree that he's pointing out is an apple tree I planted maybe 20 years ago. It's probably, I don't know what the circumference is, but beyond that, I worry much more about the maple trees. I mean, they are old, they're huge, relatively, and I certainly don't want to do anything to disrupt them or impair them. That's why, as John said, we've sited it away from all trees except that little apple tree that sadly doesn't bear much fruit, but
So there's no additional planting being done, though, but there's no planting, so they're just building.
no, I'm not going to do anything else.
Mhm.
Further questions? Or shall we move to a motion? Does anyone care to make a motion?
You want to do your variance first?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chris.
I don't know if we need one here. I don't think Jeff submitted one because we're not in
okay.
inner riparian, we're not in the inner buffer zones.
Yeah, that's my interpretation as well.
Yeah, okay.
I think if we were disturbing more than 1,000 square feet in the riverfront area, we would need to,
Yes, you would have needed a variance request for that.
but we're coming in at 950.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for NOI 2333 with the following conditions, which are our standard Conservation Commission package of conditions. I would also, I would just comment that it looks like the construction entrance and all the staging areas looks like they're taking place on driveways, so we don't need to worry about cleaning truck tires and the like. So I think we'll just stay with our standard conditions. Does anybody have any conditions that they might want to suggest at this point? Yeah, so do I have a second?
Second,
Take a roll call vote. Bill Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bellidis. Motion passes 5-0-0.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so next up. Where are we? 74. Oh, yes. Sorry, hang on a second here. That was 98 South Main, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So next is a public hearing for an extension of NOI 1920 at 70 Border Street. The subject is proposed construction of a previously approved dock and float within land under ocean resource. In accordance, so I'm going to open the meeting here in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. via the remote participation on Zoom platform for NOI 1920 at 70 Border Street. The public hearing is now open. Charlotte?
Hi, we have George McGoldrick, who is the applicant. And George, would you like to walk us through your request?
So in the past, we'd gotten approval to build a dock out on 70 Border Street. And it was been delayed for obviously COVID, but more importantly, we ran into ledge. So I've had a difficult time trying to find someone who could prepare the property for us. I did find someone, as I mentioned in our last hearing, that is putting together the answers to the questions that were raised at the last hearing. And he's ready to put that forth. I noticed that your next hearing has got maybe a half a dozen projects already, so maybe we don't have a problem waiting until the February, I think 14th or whatever that date is, to come back to you with all the,
Oh, you froze.
You froze there for a moment. Mr. McGoldrick, you the last part of your last sentence was cut off mid-sentence. If you could repeat it, please.
so I believe I was saying that there was a number of issues and questions that were raised at our last hearing, and I have the contractor working on those for you. We're happy to come back. I noticed at the next hearing, you have, looks like a pretty full slate, so we don't mind waiting until the February hearing to come back to you on.
So you'd like a continuance?
But we obviously I need a continuance of the, or extension of the permit. And then we'll come back to you in February to answer the questions that were raised at the last hearing.
Yeah, so sorry, this is a separate request to just extend the previously issued order of conditions for, I believe you said 1 additional year, George?
Yes, please.
Okay, and yeah, the amended notice of intent request, is pushed off until January 18th at the moment, but George just said he's happy to push it until February too. So yeah, we're just looking at the extension request tonight.
I see.
And for reference, the order was issued 11/13/2019, but so it would have expired in 11/19/2022. However, due to the COVID tolling provisions, it was extended 462 days. So I believe it would have been, it was February 18th, 2024 for an expiration date that was, extended due to COVID tolling provisions.
So
Correct.
we only need a motion to extend the NOI 1920?
Correct. Yeah, for 1 additional year. And then I guess just to clarify, if the commission wanted to issue the extension, would we want to do maybe perhaps from the date it would have expired? Yeah, I guess
The 3 years.
procedural wise, it's kind of tricky. I can pull up the order so you guys can see it. But yeah, technically, it realistically would have expired 11/13/2022, but now with the COVID provisions, it would expire February 18th, 2024. So I think you could extend it maybe to November 13th, 2025, I guess. I think that would be pretty much an additional year past the February date. I guess, George, would that be acceptable to you?
That's fine. I
But that-
Or you
didn't
can
have
do-
gray, I
that's
didn't
when
have
work
gray
has
hair
to
when
be
I started.
completed.
Oh, sorry?
Charlotte, that's when work has to be completed by, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Well, that's
Correct.
I mean, if there's any holdups or all, that only gives you 1 year.
Correct. So as we've talked in the last hearing, the actual construction isn't that long. It's the difficulty with the ledge is what has delayed it. So the hope is that we come back to you in February. We answer the questions that were raised at the last hearing to your satisfaction. You give us the go-ahead and we start construction this spring, and it's a 2 to 3 week project. It's not a long project.
Okay.
It's just a
So
difficulty
if
of
I
building.
understand this right, you will not be able to, with the extension, you will not be able to proceed until you've provided satisfactory answers to our questions. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, because
And
Do
I
you-
think we could just include that in our conditions of extension here, just to solidify that. Charlotte?
I
I mean, we can,
don't know, because the extension request is different from the amended request. The amended request would not change the expiration date. It would only approve the updated plans if they meet the commission's and the, regulatory satisfaction. So the extension request will change the expiration date, but it will not, the amended order of conditions will not. So the amended order of conditions would have the same expiration date as the extension permit, if that makes sense.
so we're not revising the order of conditions in any way, is that?
No, you're just,
No,
you're issuing
correct.
an extension permit for an order of condition.
Okay. So let's move this right along then. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and issue an extension of for notice of intent 1920. Is that all we need, Charlotte?
Yeah, so so we would want a 1-year extension, and would we want to do from the February 2024 date or technically the 11/13/2025, I guess, to give it an additional year?
Let's give it an additional year for sure. So.
Yeah, no, it's kind of tricky. I guess it's like the COVID extension. I mean, you can extend it from 2/18/2024 to 2/18/2025, or you could do, technically the 11/13, the original date of issuance, and then just add the 2025 as the additional year, including the COVID tolling provision extension. It's kind of confusing, honestly.
Well, let's take the less confusing
Yeah.
alternative, which sounds like to me to extend it from 2024 to 2025.
11/13/2025. Okay.
Yeah, right. Let's leave COVID behind us, at least administratively.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll revise that motion to close the public hearing and issue an extension for NOI 1920 from what's the exact date, Charlotte?
So it'd be from 2/18/2024 technically to 11/13/2025.
2/18/24 to 2/18/2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Bergen,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 5-0-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I didn't think it was appropriate for me to comment earlier on the application regarding the tree removals up, but as a president of the Gulf River Association, I just want to let you know that we really appreciate the due diligence that this board is doing in terms of tree removal. We have, in my 15 years living on the river, we found that previous boards have just been very lax about allowing people to take trees down with, as someone in your board mentioned earlier, with the tree contractor being the one that says the tree is dead. So I just want to know that the board really appreciates the fact that you guys are taking the time to do those types of things, because it does protect the health of the river. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that
Thank you,
takes.
George.
Charlotte, did you get my comments on that? On that?
Yeah,
here?
yeah. I've relayed those to the applicant, for the amended request, yes.
Okay.
Next, public hearing continued from November 2nd, 2023 for notice of intent 2323, stormwater permit 2316, 205 Atlantic Avenue. Subject is proposed construction of a new residence and landscaping within the 50 and 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank. Charlotte. Bring on Sean.
Hi, yes, I'm looking for Deb. I don't know where she just went. She was being promoted and then I don't know what happened to her. Oh, there she is. They're slowly coming through. But while they're waiting to come on, we have Deb Keller from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors Engineer, Sean Papish from Sean Papish Landscape Architecture. Oh, and then I do see the applicant in the audience. I'm trying to promote them. And then we also have William Edis from DTM Law representing the applicant as well. And William, I'm sorry if you go by Will or Bill, I cannot remember. Okay. Deb, would you like to start? I do see the applicant in the audience. I don't know if they want to stay there, if they want to be promoted, so.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So as stated, we've, this, I believe, is our second meeting. Since our first meeting, we did have a site visit on site back in mid-November. And since then, we've done some minor adjustments to the plans, answered a couple of questions. I can go over them quickly. And then I think our team is happy to take any questions from the commission. A couple of the questions were, we clarified the tree protection, which is on, let's see, oh gosh, could I share my screen? I'm looking at my screen now going, it's on this sheet. But let me share it. Okay, hopefully you can see that. And oh, there we go. So we updated the tree protection to include the trunk of burlap and boards around the trunk, as well as the fencing around the drip line of the trees to be protected during construction. I did go through the chart, the tables, and did catch that we were one tree short. And that was tree 7, which is identified in the table. Here it's identified as being retained. It is removed. It's within the subsurface chamber system here in the front yard. So that tree would be removed. That at the end result there is total of 94 trees to be removed, of which 36 were identified as in poor health or dead. Those are the trees that are highlighted in green. There's 26 either non-native or invasive. Those are shown in blue. And then that results in 32 basically native healthy trees that would be are proposed to be removed on the site. I can break that down even further. So we have 5 trees in poor health, 1 non-native, and 3 good trees in the 0 to 50. We have 19 poor health, 16 non-native, and 18 good health trees in the 50 to 100 being removed. And then outside of the 100-foot buffer, there are 12 poor health trees, 9 non-native, and 11 healthy trees being removed. On the proposed landscaping plan, Sean is proposing 27 new trees on the property. And just a brief update, I did go back and look at the previously approved project just to show that we're sort of in line with the same impacts. We had 90 trees being proposed to be removed, previously approved. 30 were, healthy trees, 60 dead and or not invasive, non-native, with 32 to remain. We have on the proposed plan 94 to be removed. So there's 4 additional trees being removed. 32 removed, 62 which are dead or non-native, with 28 to remain. I did note that we still do have tree number 40, which is up here, and 33, which is in this location here near the tennis court, that were previously approved to be removed. And unless Sean tells me otherwise, they're both in poor health, but maybe we don't need to remove them. And if Sean would like to speak up and correct me, that would get us closer to the previously approved plan.
That's correct, Deb. We were intending to keep those
Retain. Okay, perfect.
at the edge of really the resource in that area. We were trying to stay away from that area.
Okay, so I think we just have a minor adjustment on the table to get those so that they're not shown as removed trees. So that would be just a minor adjustment to the plan.
And sorry, Deb, so you're cutting down tree 7 and you're keeping which trees again?
It would be tree number 33 and 40.
Okay.
So 33 is here, just
Okay.
behind the tennis court, and 40 is up near the
Okay. Thank
property
you.
line back.
Charlotte, Ms. Keller's referred to some sort of approved landscape plan. Did we ever approve a landscape plan for this?
So we approved the site plan with the tree inventory, but we did not approve a final landscaping plan. It was issued as a special condition to provide a final landscaping plan that was acceptable to the chair and the agent, but we unfortunately never came to a revised finalized landscaping plan to be approved as part of the original order.
Commissioners, I'll open it to you to comment or question.
Ms. Keller, would you,
Yes.
this is Chris McFarland. I was unfortunately not at your first hearing. I did listen to the tape. Could I ask you please just to quickly review the buffers one more time?
Sure. So I can on this plan, if this one seems reasonable to you.
That's fine.
So here, I'll follow my arrow. This is the 50-foot no disturb.
Yes.
Comes around here and then runs along the frontage along Atlantic Ave. And then your 100 is right here.
Right. Right through the house, basically.
Right through the house, yes.
Okay, and
So-
then the others.
The other,
So you've got a upland bank, is that right?
we have a coastal bank. So this 50-foot buffer is the highest 50-foot buffer from the most landward resource.
Mhm.
So instead of adding all the, I guess, water side buffers and adding more lines, we just did the most up gradient setback. So that's what those are. And so this over here is from the wetland across the street from Little Harbor.
Okay. And on this plan, I believe I see 2 trees being removed where your driveway is going to enter. Is that correct?
We have one tree right at the driveway entrance.
Yep.
Coming in, and then you have 2 trees right at this bend.
Okay, it's the one at the, so we don't have jurisdiction over removal of trees on town property. So that's
Okay.
going to be a separate permit that you're going to have to look into.
Okay, so I believe that's, I'm gonna zoom in just a little closer. I think that's tree 16.
Yeah.
Yep, tree 16. So I can mark that down that we can check in.
And
And
I also.
There is another one at the corner there that's just over the property line also, but the left side. I can't see the number there. No,
These
one
here-
further. One further, there's an X all the way in the corner. With
This
those
one
two
here?
Yeah, they're over the property line, that's all.
Yeah, that one is right on the property line, so I'll include that in that permit just to cover ourselves. Yeah, and these are being retained.
Mhm.
Item 8, let's look. I thought I saw that one. 8. Is a black cherry. So that one is being proposed. So that one would be one that's outside of the right of way. Sean, did we say that we were going to try to keep that one?
I think we were trying to keep that base.
Keep that one.
Yeah, we were checking on grade relative. Yeah, we were keeping that.
Yeah. Grading, it doesn't cross the property line, so we should keep that one.
Yeah.
I think isn't that the one with the limb that was coming across that we said we would talk to DPW about?
There was, number 10 was the one that was
Oh, okay, that one's closer. That one's this one.
the previous applicant. Maybe he had a conversation with the town and he said he'd take it down for them. It's in really, really poor shape.
Mhm.
It off because it is in the town right of way. And we specifically have not had that conversation in public works.
Correct. So just for clarification, we would be requesting tree number 2, which is on the property line, and tree 16 within the proposed driveway. We'll coordinate that. I assume that's with the DPW for removal within the right of way. And then I would update this plan if unless we find out otherwise that number 8 would be retained.
Commissioners,
Yeah, so Tom, if I may.
Yeah.
The big difference between this plan and the previous plan is that the the building is much further into the 100-foot buffer, if I'm not mistaken. And just for transparency, I will say that I actually did, I was part of the previous plan. I did approve it. I was at the site visit, and this project has always been of concern, and I just want to say to the applicant and the commission that our duty here is to protect the wetland. And we all know that there is a very old tennis court sitting out here. Obviously, Sean has looked at re-landscaping. It's similar to what the earlier project was. But because of, we have almost 100% disturbance of the 50 to 100-foot buffer on this property. And my position on this is that I'm willing to consider full disturbance of the 50 to 100-foot buffer. But I really believe this property needs a 100% mitigation of the 50-foot buffer. 100%. That means removal of tennis court, removal of all invasive species, and full replanting to the highest standard possible. There's the state, the feds. There's a number of organizations that have very specific specifications for what has to happen, and I really think in this project where 100% of the 50 to the 100-foot buffer is disturbed, it's the only way that we can protect this property is to reestablish the inner buffer zone 100%. That's my position on this.
Can I ask a question, Chris?
Yes.
So we did have a mitigation plan to enhance the 0 to 50 in the original.
I remember it being for the area of the Japanese knotweed. Yes.
Yep. And I think they had some improvements on this backside of the tennis court as well. Is that similar to what you're looking for?
Well, I can't remember what the mitigation was.
Yeah.
I know at the time the commission felt, and believe me, I'm only one member here. I do remember that there were members of the commission at that time who thought that the disturbance of the knotweed was more destructive than mitigation. But as I and someone just sent me, someone who works for the federal government just sent me I wish I could tell you what it was, but it's one of the bigger organizations. It's not FEMA, but it's their erosion and mitigation specifications. And as I look at that, I think to myself that this property warrants that level of reestablishment. I mean, when you kind of zoom out a little bit and you think about this property being developed, that a great area is going to be clear cut. You've got a lot of development going on. You've got a lot of construction, and there's a lot of properties in this town that you can go and look at and think to yourself, oh yeah, this used to be a forest, and now it's driveway and house and pool and walls, etc. It just seems to me that at this particular location that it would really benefit the environment and the resource if the 50-foot buffer was totally reestablished. And yes, I am thinking that would include the knotweed. Now, again, like I said, I'm one person. but I really, I really see this, because the 50 to 100 is so impacted, the 0 to 50 is more critical than ever. And that's why I'm kind of looking at this from this position.
The only thing I would say in our plan right now for that 0 to 50, that is, you wouldn't call it restoration, would be the asphalt tennis court. A substantial amount of that has been planted.
I understand.
The lawn area in there that we are proposing, right?
Yeah, that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have this, I just feel that you don't have a 50 to 100. You only have one functioning buffer, and that is the 0 to 50. And it seems to me that has to work twice as hard, because it's half the size. And so a landscape that isn't comprised of native plants and having a layered structure, that has ground covers and forbs and shrubs and understory and canopy. If it doesn't have that, then it's not going to function properly. And that's what this property needs. And as I said, I'm one of many commissioners here, but I just wanted to kind of state my opinion on where this development's gone to. So
I'll agree with all of Chris's with one caveat, because I was also here at the last one too, and there was a big debate on the use of glyphosate. Now, the only thing I throw out was I wouldn't want to see any glyphosate within the 50-foot buffer for this restoration. And there was a lot of people said you can't be done. You have to cut it for years and years, but just think that if that's what it takes, that's what we should try here, like Chris is saying.
The commission has been moving in the direction of allowing greater alteration with respect to invasive species particularly in the 50-foot buffer. And I think we all recognize that we should recognize that when our bylaws and regulations were written back in the 80s, these invasive plants weren't quite as big an issue that they've become in the last 40 years. And it's my opinion that we need to be flexible enough to allow mitigation of invasive species within the 50-foot buffer. Part of that mitigation is obviously replacement of these invasive species with native species, and an ongoing program by an applicant to make sure this works. And furthermore, the organization of the landscape plan that looks formal, looks artificial, is probably not an acceptable path forward, I think. And I don't know how many people might agree with me on the commission, but from my perspective, it needs to be wild, not just look wild, it needs to be wild.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trade-off. Let's get rid of the Phragmites if we can. Let's get rid of the knotweed and swallowwort and all these really ugly things that are coming in and displacing our native plants. But let's not do it with a formal landscape design. Things need to be random. To the best extent possible, I think we should let nature take over in that 50-foot buffer. I do agree that we are eating up 50% of the buffer to the resource here by driveways, rain gardens, swimming pools, etc. The house,
Auto court,
and auto court, and doing something that is both aesthetically appealing in that 50-foot buffer, but more importantly, ecologically meaningful should really be everybody's goal here.
Okay. I know, with this plan, we tried to stay out of the 50-foot buffer as much as possible, only from the past conversations that we had. So I think Sean and I can kind of put our heads together and maybe come up with and check in with the applicant and see what we could come up with for mitigation within the 0 to 50.
So I'm only one member here, but I
Yep.
guess I'm signaling that at least I'm more open to changes within the 50, but within the parameters that I just explained.
Correct.
So let me get into a little bit of detail here. One of the questions I have is about the area around the court. And from what I see on the satellite image, I see a lawn going in on the southeast part of the southeast of the court. And it looks to me like there's already trees there. And I don't see any trees there shown on your plan other than those circular, you were just passed over that with your, those.
Yep.
That doesn't seem entirely, I haven't overlaid this plan on the satellite image yet.
Yep.
But I have, just by eyeballing it, it looks to me like there's actually trees just to the left of your cursor. And they're not shown there. What's the story?
These are existing trees right in here. These
I'm buying that, but to the left of those, right up there, in that area.
right there.
Yeah.
Let's
Looks to me like
let's
the
check.
trees.
So we have I just hopped to the
Oh,
existing conditions.
I see some trees now on that plan.
So these are the trees that I highlighted on the landscaping plan. Here's the tennis court fence,
Yeah,
right? So it lines up with that stair. So if we hop back to the landscaping and I'll zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
So this would be this
so where's the
line.
fence?
Right
Yeah.
along here.
Is that the
Yeah,
fence?
right where I'm showing it right here.
All right. Okay.
So we are creeping a little bit around that fence, that'll anywhere where it'd be disturbed when you pull up that fence to plant with some beach grass and
I guess when I look at the satellite photo, the open space on the southeast end is about half the length of the court. And what I see on your drawing here is that it's equal to the full length of the court. So something doesn't quite work for me here.
We're all we were doing is planting where the tennis court.
Yeah.
right here.
And
Correct.
This,
it may just be the overlap of the canopy over that southeast part of it that I'm seeing on the satellite imagery, not actually the trunks, but again, the canopy is not shown here. And I understand that engineering don't necessarily show trees and things like this to scale.
Yep.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's that's what I guess I'm seeing.
Yeah, the outlines in the neighborhood. It's not colored in.
Yeah.
It is difficult to see that. Yeah, I bet you these canopies are probably even a tad small, right,
Yeah,
Sean?
yeah, graphically, they might be a little bit smaller. We didn't color them in because we're trying to show the material below it.
So I would encourage you guys to really, wouldn't even hurt for you guys to overlay this in real coordinates and overlay it on a satellite image so we get a better image of what actually taking place here. You know, I know you've grown accustomed to us relying a bit on Nearmap, which is a very valuable enforcement tool for us. We can look back all the way to 2014 and see when somebody tells us something about their vegetation, we can actually see the changes over a long period now. And it's helpful for us, I think, for any applicant, not just you guys, but any applicant to have an underlay here of the satellite image, a recent one, and preferably two of them, one with the trees and one with the trees leafed out and one without it, so that we really get a good notion of what you guys are talking about. These engineering drawings are idealized in many ways, And so it's a bit of a stretch sometimes for us to envision exactly what you have in mind.
Yeah.
So getting back to the 50-foot buffer,
Mhm.
I think that Commissioner McFarland's made a really good point. You're eating the 100-foot buffer of 50 to 100 alive here, and want to do even more stuff in the 50 than we would really be comfortable with. In fact, removing that tennis court altogether and letting that go wild here would be very appealing to us. Now, I'm not saying that that's how this is all going to play out, but let's just say that at least two of us think that we'd like to see something a little bit less formal in that area and a little less disturbed. The trade-off for you and for whoever ultimately lives here is that we would tolerate the removal of the invasive species under the supervision of somebody who knows what they're doing out there. Foliar sprays would probably be way off the out of line, but spot treatment of Phragmites, where you cut it off and inject glyphosate into the main stem. I think we're moving towards a position where we would find that acceptable. At least
Okay.
I am, and so I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but
Tom, I'd say that I'm in agreement with with you and Chris, or Will. It's hard. It's very difficult for me, and I was only associate commissioner when this previous plan was, so I didn't vote on it. Yeah, I'm in agreement with. I think we need. I would like to see, maximizing the natural landscaping of that buffer zone through the planting plan. And regarding the removal of invasive species, I mean, I'm open to anything, and I've heard a lot about the methods for knotweed. I don't see how cutting it year after year is less disturbing. I would be yeah, I'm open to looking at anything, including the use of herbicides for very specific use and methods, which I think, I don't know, I think they were injecting directly into the stem or something like that, but direct application or injection.
Mhm.
the National Park Service has been doing this for 20 years in the Great Smoky Mountains with considerable success. And as I read more about that, I am more convinced than ever that we could adopt the same sorts of protocols that they've established and maybe not win the battle against invasive species, but at least give the landowner some tools to control some of the ugly parts of their otherwise native plant yard.
Yep, and that invasive area, I believe, was right in here.
Yeah.
Some of it was shared, the rain garden area, as well as in the 0 to 50 over here.
Yeah,
So that's-
actually almost all the way to the steps over there.
Oh, really?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it really spread out here.
Yeah, it's all in going up to that structure, those walls that are now, those existing walls.
Oh,
There's a lot.
all the way over here.
To this-
Wow.
The south there, the south, yeah.
Oh, here. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, so it's this whole
It's
area.
all over in there. So
Essentially, we were leaving that area alone and the other areas that were underneath the canopies of those trees that you had mentioned earlier, Tom. And some of the other areas to the east of there, right, to the east of the tennis court. And is that such that you would still say that you'd like to see that area to the north of what's the tennis court now be disturbed and underplanted where those trees are, and to the areas of the south where those trees are? Were you looking for kind of a landscape planting remediation plan for those areas also that are in that are basically in white here because we weren't getting into them. Are you looking, yeah, right where the cursor is, like in those areas. When you
I'm
look,
looking for more than that.
what's that again?
I'm looking for more than that.
No, I mean the areas, I mean.
I'm looking at the entire 50-foot buffer from north to
That's what
south
I'm asking about.
here. And the elimination of that court and lawn that's proposed.
So it's
And something that could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be trees, it could be a meadow.
right.
Something that is, that looks natural. And again, I think Chris articulated it extremely well. You guys are eating up the whole buffer between 50 and 100 feet, and so maybe compensation for that is to remove the invasives from the 50, remove the tennis court, skip the lawn, put something in here that looks native and random.
Well, not only looks native, but functions native.
Functions native, right? It needs to be a functional ecological system. No water, no pesticides other than the removal of those invasives and I mean, it could, from my perspective, I think it could look really cool. I mean, I could never afford to live in a house like this, but if I did, this is sort of what I'd be looking for, is to make it as natural as possible. This is a beautiful site, probably the best site in the entire coast of Cohasset. And it could be the pride of somebody who owns this, not to have some grand mansion, which they're going to have on the 100-foot buffer, but also to have something that is blends into the landscape. I guess it's a challenge to you guys to think how can we make this look really cool, but also look like it's really natural.
Natural.
Well, we think we were in the process of doing that anyway, other than the fact that we were still, allowing for the homeowner to have some amount of lawn area. So we still think these edges were going
If they went along, they can maybe have less floor area.
but I also do think relative to the previously approved plan that had to be a lawn tennis court, which would have been highly just horrendous with chemicals.
Well, no, it wouldn't have been, because we told you could have a tennis court without any chemicals.
Yeah.
And it was sworn up and down that it could be done, even though Eric Eisenhower said, no, it can't. So.
Yeah, I don't believe it could have been.
But again, keep in mind that was never approved.
The site plan was, right?
The site
Correct.
plan was approved, but
The site plan
landscape-
with the grass court was, but the landscaping to, basically
Right.
restore and mitigate the areas without using herbicides was not approved.
Those
We're
are,
looking for a different deal here from you guys.
yeah, those are much smaller areas.
We're looking for a different deal.
Understand?
And I think that quite a few residents in Cohasset would appreciate this. We drive, a lot of us drive past that all the time.
While I agree with that, I don't think that's our.
No, it isn't. You're right.
Yeah.
That's an aesthetic opinion that
Yeah.
Carries no weight.
So how long will it take?
I'm gonna out Sean.
I don't know. Are there other comments at all for this plan, or is there anything else, or is that, we'd have to certainly, of course, talk to the applicant. About.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, for me to, consider approval, it's all about, minimizing the disturbance in the 50, and then whatever you can do to minimize the impervious surfaces, or just to make it more natural and more functional as a buffer zone and, that's what I'm looking for and to focus in the 50, obviously, but, it's just, it's really hard for me to, to get on board with this as is.
So just to add, the terrace and walkways that are around the pool house, excuse me, the pool area, are intended to be permeable, correct, Sean?
Correct.
So that we were thinking that trying to minimize, true impervious areas. And obviously, from the stormwater perspective, we focused on treating the driveway and recharging the roof runoff, et cetera. So we were looking at that, but it looks like we can do maybe a little more digging onto the 0 to 50.
Yeah, the stormwater permit is obviously separate from wetlands jurisdiction. And
Yep.
From what I see of the stormwater plan, it's well designed. It's going to work. It's really the wetland issues here, the resource area, the 50-foot buffer that is the tough part, let's say.
Okay. I guess we're back to, Sean, we have to or see what the applicant would be willing to entertain, and then see if we could come up with a program for the 0 to 50.
Right.
Is there a timeline, do you think, that would be helpful for that?
On our end?
Carla, when are our next few meetings?
So as you guys have seen, January 18th is looking pretty full. Our following meeting is February 1st, and then the meeting after that is February 15th. So those are the next three: January 18th, February 1st, and February 15th.
So can we say February 1st for right now? And you can talk to your client?
Yes.
That sounds very reasonable.
Yep.
Okay, so we're continued until February
1st.
1st. Okay.
Sure.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
You.
Welcome.
Stop sharing. Very good.
Can we take a 5-minute break? Everybody okay with that?
Tom, what's next on the agenda? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah,
Before we take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, this is 205. Then we're just going to move on to show cause and one show cause, one certificate of compliance, and then Charlotte has the devil's list.
Sorry. I mean, I don't have to go through it.
No, that's
No,
fine.
no, we're doing pretty well. It's 8:14, so let's reconvene at 8:19 if you don't mind.
It's fine.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
got dehydrated there, Charlotte.
What was that?
I got dehydrated. I was on
That's
my
okay.
on my rowing machine too long today.
That was enough time to execute one bedtime. Thank
There
you.
you go.
You know, I just, you guys can speak up anytime you want. If you do have something like that to do, I don't think it's unreasonable to take a 5-minute break after an hour and a half of, or 2 hours of meeting. If nothing
Yeah, I
else,
appreciate that.
just to stand up and and get your blood flowing again.
Yeah.
Now I can be less muted.
Tom, do we want to wait for Chris to come back, or do we want to
Yeah,
start the?
I'm sure you'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sanjay and Fernando and Valerio haven't.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Sanjay said he might be able to jump on later tonight, but I didn't hear from Valerio.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Well, for any continued hearings, they can always, they can catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to give him like another 30 seconds, minute, or?
Yeah. Let's give them just a little bit. We're
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh, okay, great.
okay. Meeting is reconvened. So we're going to consider a show cause hearing tonight for NOI 2213, stormwater permit 2210 at 44 Little Harbor Road. The subject is unauthorized vegetation removal in the 50 and 100 foot buffers to the coastal bank and possibly the coastal bank resource. Charlotte?
Yep. Just so that we're, just to kind of clarify for the commission, the show cause hearing was originally scheduled for December, but Rich, the applicant here on the call, wanted to make sure that he could attend, so we changed the date to January. So back in, I believe back in like early mid-November, got a call from some abutters who were across the water in Little Harbor who saw some tree cutting and vegetation removal happening on the site. I got there later in the afternoon. I didn't see the landscaper who was there, but it looked like they had, removed some vegetation and cut down a couple trees. I'll show some photos, and then I can also pull up the site plans for reference. So the work that was permitted was essentially a reconstruction and renovation of the existing home with some landscaping and decks and stuff. And so this is the front of the property. There were 3 trees that were approved to be removed because the driveway will be relocated. So this is just the front. So those 3 trees were removed. But once you start walking around to the back of the property, so the back of the property is facing north. So this is on the eastern side. So it looked like at least here along this eastern slope here, it was mowed or weed whacked. There were some shrub kind of stumps here that looked like they were cut down to the ground. Just trash that was there. So it looked like a handful of kind of like hardy shrubs and woody vegetation that was kind of along this bank here that was probably overgrowing into the lawn that was kind of weed whacked or mowed or pushed back. And no trees on this eastern side that were removed, but on the western property side, there were some trees along the property line, and one was looked like it was in the practically in the water that were removed. This is just a cedar kind of grove here. It was mostly just branches removed on this western side, so none of these trees were removed. It was looked like it'd be about one here that was growing out of there. And then this area is in the western side, where we're getting close to the property border, where it looked like at least maybe one live cedar or maybe 1 or 2 dead cedars in this area were cut down. And I think the applicant can speak a little bit more to that, but it was, so this was back in like early mid-November. And unfortunately, this work did occur outside of the, at least on this side, outside of the limit of work. because it was past the erosion control barrier. So at least my concern right now is, of course, stabilizing this area for now until, we can come up with a plan of how to mitigate this. But with that, I can turn it over to the applicant for additional
Charlotte,
information.
Charlotte,
sorry.
before you turn it over, could you
Yeah.
possibly call up a near map or something and
Near map? Okay,
walk through that? Because I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to jump back and forth between
yeah,
an aerial
Um,
view and what you're saying, because when I look at an aerial view, I see vegetation around the entire property, and what you're describing is little bits and pieces, so.
yeah. So this is the property parcel. This is from October this year. So just to give you guys kind of a view, this side was mostly more like shrubs and bushes and the grasses and stuff that were here. And then this side has more of the trees.
Those are bigger than shrubs.
Well, yeah, there's definitely some trees here, but these were not cut to my knowledge. I didn't see stumps on this eastern side. It was the stumps kind of along here along the northwestern property border. But I don't know.
Well, you can see the silt sock, correct?
Yes. So the
Okay.
silt sock is kind of around here.
Right. And then so where's the removal is where?
So the kind of weed whacking and kind of mowing was around here along this area, within the 50-foot buffer, and then a
Charlotte,
little bit.
how much of, it looks like some of this was done actually on the coastal bank? Not even within the buffer, but actually in the resource, is that?
That appears to be the case, at least on the western side. It could be potentially on this side too. I'd have to look at the plans to kind of compare it, but at least on this side here, like this kind of corner area here, might have been some work within or near the bank. But we do have the applicant on the call who can provide some additional clarification to this activity. I don't know if we want to hear him first or if you guys have more questions for me, but so that's what was reported in November and what we witnessed on the site.
So I think we do have more questions for you since you've done
Okay.
something of an investigation.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the size of the trees that were cut?
Yeah. I'll have to go back to the photos though, if that's okay.
Sure.
So this is one of them. This appears to be what looks like a cedar. Probably maybe 6+ inches, 6 to 10, if I were to estimate it. I can't confirm.
I'd say it's considerably larger than 6 inches.
Sorry, I'm just looking at a photo, so I can't remember what I visually saw on site because I didn't measure the caliper size, but
You can see that beer
Comment
can
there
right there. That's
You've got that red heartwood and the white new wood. What do you think? 15 inches?
Yeah, I would say that, I think that's a beer can off to the side or a soda can, so that's 5 or 6 inches by itself, so.
this one is kind of a similar size, but this one definitely looked like it was dead or it's amongst this weed whacked area. And then there were some small like shrub stumps that were found around this area too. So this is kind of the whole northwestern property area, for reference. And then this tree, it's a little hard to tell, but it's definitely on the smaller side. But those are the ones that I saw. And then the other stumps looked like they were not from trees. They were more like woody shrubs.
Could you go back to photos there, Charlotte?
Yeah, sorry. When I zoom in and zoom out, it like freaks out. So let me just, yeah. Oh, wait, other way.
Yeah,
This one?
right there. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of sawdust, red cedar sawdust around that. Is there a stump in the middle of that somewhere?
I think that's where one of the stumps was, yes. So it's, I think it's a little bit further up when I walked up there.
Well, that's the center. It looks like it might be buried there. You might have missed something.
Possibly, yes.
One there, and there's one there.
No, it is possible something could have been ground here and I just didn't see it.
Yeah, okay.
But,
Yeah.
we do have the applicant here on the call too, if he wants to provide some additional information for this activity. Rich, can you hear us? You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I think the main thing here is that when we bought this property, it was completely overrun with weeds, like dead trees, a lot of things that Sean, I think, went over when we first proposed to the commission back, and I think it was we bought this in 21, so it was probably 21, or when we had the hearings 22. And we really didn't focus on the property because we were focused on the house. And subsequently this fall, we needed to address the property because in walking in back of the property, I had contacted a severe case of poison ivy, and my wife got Lyme's disease. So we need to address what was going on in the property. And we started to clear out the weeds, which I believe were part of the plan that Sean Papich had proposed and had been passed by you folks. And really, it was just the weeds we were addressing here, but they were clearly dead trees, and I think there were pictures of those. And in fact, there were so many so much weeds that we uncovered like stone steps down to the back of the property. Now in November, with the trees that you mentioned, Charlotte, we uncovered, like we came upon dead trees, 2 dead trees that were clearly dead, and they may be outlined here. I don't know exactly these pictures, where they were placed, but it was our feeling that they were dead, and they would just impose a potential risk in any storm or whatever. So it was my decision. I will take responsibility for that. But dead trees, I decided we'd take them down and just take that potential exposure off the table. But we still have a grove of cedar trees back there. So like, we didn't do wholesale changes down there. We just took what we knew were to be dead trees. And I think, I know Sean's probably not on the call now, and Sean was not involved in that decision, but I think we were trying to follow his plan. And this property was so completely overrun with weeds. We felt like we were doing the right thing. And on the right side, or you may say the east side, that bank, that's still like, there's a lot of like, I would consider not to be like native, or I may have the wrong terminology, but as you can see, like, I thought the plan was and I'm not saying it's kind of, that's what it is. Like, that's kind of way it's been since we bought this property, but I was hoping, and I thought part of the plan dealing with Sean is that we could replace that with plantings that were amenable to everybody involved in this decision. So we haven't even addressed that part of it yet. We were just trying to clean up the lawn, which had grown uncontrollably on top of what the previous owner let this property get to, and clean it up while the guys were working on the house, because it really was unsafe for anybody working in the back of the yard. And that's kind of the thought process there.
Mr. Whalen, when did you buy the property?
I bought it August 21. But it took between getting, the architect, the landscape architect, Sean, involved in getting through you guys and the large home review. We didn't probably start work on the property on the house until November of 22.
And I believe
We didn't really start to address the landscaping of the lawn until like early this fall to try to clean it up, because it had become just out of control.
Yeah, and I can, I'm happy to pull up the approved landscaping plan for reference. The tricky part, at least the way that I see it here, is there was definitely some, there was an approved landscaping plan. It's just, I think the limit of the work was very specific in certain pocket areas, and also doesn't specify, the extent of the trimming and the stuff. So maybe, looking back, that could have potentially been discussed when the permit was issued. But as you can see, there were very specific areas that were supposed to be planted, but it was really mostly on the eastern side. There were a few little pockets here and there. in this area, but the landscaping plan, from what I can see, does not clearly specify that the vegetation, will be, in these areas specifically, as you guys saw in the photos, was going to be removed. It was really just kind of enhancing these areas with some native plantings, but, so that's really at least where I saw the concern is, looking at the approved plans versus what was done on site. It appears that more was done on site than intentionally permitted.
And Charlotte, like, we fully intend to like adhere to that plan, particularly on the, and again, I think it's the East Bank, per Sean's plan, but given the timing of the year, it's probably going to have to be a spring exercise. But what we really want to do is get the property cleaned up, and in doing so, encountered these dead trees. Now, I don't know. I just didn't want to leave dead trees. And this property was so poorly maintained. We encountered so many issues. We tried to stay to the plan, clean it up, and in those two instances, there were 2 dead trees, and I think it just made I thought it was a safety issue because I did not think that they on a bad storm, they could come over. They were that dead that we should take them down.
Charlotte.
So
can you-
if I could just say, Mr. Whalen, you bought a waterfront property. The Wetland Protection Act gives us jurisdiction to determine whether or not vegetation should or can be removed. It's not supposed to keep you from managing your property to a certain level, but the truth of the matter is you're just not supposed to go out and cut down trees. That's the basis of it. Some of those trees were dead or dying. That's understandable. There's a stump there which was definitely a living tree. But in any case, whether living or dying, people come in front of this commission every month to talk about, can we take down a tree? Is it a hazard? Most people are coming here because they don't like the look of a dead tree. But dead trees have an important function within the environment, and that's what we're here to try to protect. So this plan, as I look at it, it actually adds planting to it. It doesn't have any indication of removing of planting. If there was a request or a desire on your part to have plantings removed, then obviously this should have come in front of us. And so that's what that's why your neighbor or whomever said, hey, all this is getting cut down, and it's just not the right way that it should have happened. I'm sorry you got poison ivy. That's part of living on a waterfront. This obviously has a couple, you can see that there's a couple, whether they're new or existing, there are some pathways that allow for access to the water, and the rest is not. So, I mean, we have a condition here now, which is it's less than what was expected and less than what was permitted, and it needs to be taken care of. And you're right, there's not a lot you can do before spring. But what has to happen now is we have to make sure that we're not getting a lot of erosion and debris floating into the harbor. That's the resource area we're trying to protect, and that's what has to happen now.
Charlotte, could you go back to near map, please? I went back to 20. Could you do the split screen? We could
Yeah.
compare side by side.
Wait. There we go. And sorry, which date?
So the closest date to before Mr. Whalen purchased the property is June 28, 2021. And if you compare that to the most recent satellite image from October 2023, you can see this has been, this isn't just a one-time thing. This, it looks like, I mean, unless the seller cut down trees right before they sold it. There were several other trees in that back area. That this is just like a completely different looking, lawn now. It's, I think the mirror view might actually be,
Mirror
easier.
view? Okay.
Sure, let's go to October 7th, 2021. I think that's an interesting comparison of what's happened here. That's when the Whalens owned the property,
Mm-hmm.
and the what is it, June 21 is before they bought it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can see some pretty substantial changes there within the buffer zones. So this is not a one-off thing.
And all due respect, Mr. Whalen, but one person's idea of like a nice backyard, maybe a like a golf course looking lawn, but in the buffer zone, that's just not what we're looking for here. It's our job as Chris McParland said, is to protect the resource, and that means to protect the buffer zones, which includes the plants, the trees, including dead trees, because they are a function of that system. When safety, if it's a safety matter, we obviously do consider that, but just clearing it out to make lawn down to the water is just not, it's not okay.
So when we say safety, we're talking about, could this tree fall on your house?
Right.
Not on the chances of being out in a nor'easter down in your forested area and being struck by a tree. It is possible, but most people don't go wandering around in their treed backyard during a storm. So the safety issue, we hear this all the time. Sometimes it's valid, and other times it's an excuse. I don't know how I'd characterize this, but let's just say that there's a continuum here of potential hazard or risk. And at least here, when you cut down trees right up against the water, they're only going to come down during a severe storm. And it seems unlikely to me that you or your children or grandchildren or anybody else would be wandering around down there when the wind's blowing 40 or 50 miles an hour. And none of these trees look like they could have possibly fallen on your house. So
No, I'm not advocating that, but I do think there are definitely, if you look, and Charlotte, I don't know if you're out there, but on the east side, there's a tree like hanging over the water. That's a couple of trees. Yeah, you're kind of focusing on it there now over that are clearly dead. I mean, they're hanging over the water, but we haven't touched anything. You can see all the shrubs and for my purposes, they're weeds. Like they're not attractive or do anything they're not native, but we haven't touched anything over there. So it's not our intention to do anything outside the scope of what was approved with Sean in his plan. It's just in this instance, like, yes, okay.
Well, you just saw the approved plan, and you obviously have done something outside of the approved plan. That's why we're having a show cause hearing.
Right. So I'm not arguing the point on those trees in the back left corner there, or I'm not sure that whatever, but like, yes, those two came down. But other than that, it was just a matter of removing the tremendous amount of weeding that was in the whole backyard.
It's not just, Mr. Whalen, it's not just trees. It's brush, it's what you call weeds that may or may not be native plants. Basically, within that 0 to 50 foot zone, we generally don't allow anything to be done.
But I don't think think, I don't know, on that right border there, like that's still in place.
So let's figure out how to move forward. I mean, that's really
Okay.
the bottom line here, I think, is I think this needs additional mitigation than what was previously approved. And we probably need to have a restoration plan developed by your contractor.
Would revising the approved landscaping plan be sufficient?
I would say no. And the reason being is we don't know what's there now.
Okay,
Mr. Whelan says that this is all weeds and not native. I think the first thing that Mr. Pabbage should do is an existing conditions map, so we know what actually is left behind. And you know, that's a, you know, it's a bit of an effort, but it's important, because if they truly are invasive, then that's important to know. And then the question is, you know, what is a proper mitigation? This is very similar to 205 Atlantic Avenue, where we're just, you know, again, we're looking at 0 to 50-foot buffer. We're looking at an area which is you know, in this case, it's got quite a slope on it, and it needs to be protecting the resource area. So it, you know, no longer, it's hard to say what needs to be added if we can't see what's there. I mean, I think we need to know what's there, and then we need to know what's being proposed to fix it.
I think it should have been apparent when the first plan was approved that this commission has jurisdiction over anything within 100 feet of the resource, which would be the coastal bank in this case, not the water's edge, but the coastal bank where the slope changes. And if anybody who was paying attention to the hearing would have understood that, I think, that in fact we were exercising our responsibility to preserve as natural a situation as possible adjacent to that coastal bank. And so when contractors and in some case it is contractors without even the applicants either approval or even or intention or understanding can get a little carried away. In this case, it looks like there's been work outside of the approved plan and within these protected areas. So I agree with Commissioner McFarland that we need to have an assessment of what the existing conditions are. We can compare that to what we see, for example, in June of 2021, and try to come up with a plan. The applicant needs to come up with a plan to restore this as best as possible.
okay. So, Rich, I think what the commission is saying is, for the purposes of this show cause, if you're able to work with, you know, Sean or, you know, even a different party, it's up to you, to produce a secondary mitigation plan, just kind of roughly outlining where you know, what the existing conditions are, and then what you're proposing to do to mitigate and rectify the situation here. Typically for mitigation plans, you know, for example, if you cut down some trees, they want to see, you know, trees to be replaced in a similar area or, you know, zone. And then maybe a plan moving forward for potentially how you plan to, maintain the area, what you're going to plant there and what that's going to look like. So that's pretty standard requirement for mitigation as a result of, these types of violations when it comes to landscaping. So does that, do you have any questions on that, or does that make sense to you? And do you have anything else for the commission?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay.
Just recognize that the from the top of the coastal bank to within 100 feet from that is within our jurisdiction, and it's undeveloped, and so it needs to return to wilderness, basically, with your help.
Okay.
I would recommend a continuance of the show cause hearing. Again, the next meeting is January 18th, but our next two meetings are February 1st and February 15th. Rich, do you have a particular preference to continuing either to the 18th or to either meeting in February to kind of come back to us with a plan?
We'll shoot for February 1.
February 1? Okay. Okay. So we'll continue the show cause hearing to February 1st. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so next we're going to resume consideration of a certificate of compliance continued from December 7th for NOI 2011 339 Jerusalem Road.
Hi, Sean.
Hey there.
And I don't see Mike in the audience unless they're labeled as guest Cohasset. So Mike, if you're in the audience, feel free to raise your hand and I can promote you as well.
He is not. He had a death.
Not, okay.
He had a death in the family, and he's not going to be able to make it, and so
Okay.
I thought that would come instead.
Do we need a continuance?
What was that again?
Do we need a continuance so he can attend?
I don't think so. He wanted me to at least find out what you guys felt about the plan. When we were chatting and were together last time, we talked about adding some mitigation or some new plantings below the wall in the area where the one large shrub had come out when they were building that wall, and the concrete wall came out. There was a large shrub, and we talked about coming back and getting some more plant material down there, that rocky beach. And so we had prepared a plan and shared it with Charlotte to submit to you and to review. And I don't know whether or not you can make a decision on it or not, but he wanted me to at least attend tonight to talk with you about it and see what your feelings were about it. And essentially what it is in the area where the previous, you can see the kind of enlargement from that rectangle in the area where the previous larger shrub had been removed and maybe some other vegetation. It's all kind of a stony beach there now, which is what it was before. But what we wanted to do is, in that case, there's an area really tucked between ledge, and I think we may have shared some photos with you, Charlotte, if you've got those.
Yeah.
That would be cool. A funny little corner there where the ledge hits and the wall is. And it's on the other side of where those grasses are. And it's right in that area, tucked right against it, because really it's all ledge right in that area. If you zoomed in, I don't know if there's another picture, if this is the only one. Might have been the only one you shared.
I think this was the only one you sent, unless I'm missing them in the emails, but.
It's kind of in that middle and upper portion of the middle to upper portion of the yeah, thank you. It's kind of a small pocket. It's about 14 feet by about 9 feet, generally rectangular in size, and there's ledge that runs all the way from that other ledge stone back into what you see in the foreground here. So if you wanted to toggle back to the plan, I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean, it looks like from if you go back to that photo for a second,
Yep.
I want to make some observations there that,
Yep.
putting my geologist hat on. It looks like this is an obvious place for groundwater discharge. You've got iron staining on your bedrock. You've got Phragmites growing here. You've got a confining ledge on one side and presumably what was once a swale before it was filled with sand and just to the west of that sod. So that's the sort of niche you're working with here.
That's correct.
It seems like there would be, and then you have, of course, the potential for saltwater washing over the whole thing with every storm or super high tide. So it seems like the selection of plants here that could survive that you can choose rather than those that are going to volunteer here would be challenging.
Right. You're right. And so the one thing is that it's hard to tell in this picture, but there was a point of discussion. It does end up on the map or on the plan where there was a reference to the large reinforced concrete pipe storm sewer coming from the street, comes out right to the side of that area. So the water doesn't hit that area. It goes to the, call it the foreground of the picture. It comes right through and around it. Really creates more of a rocky, and it kind of doglegs off to the left toward the upper part of the screen there. The other direction, it goes up and the water flows kind of toward that 10 contour box that you see on there. And so it's really just a rocky zone tucked in between those two spots. Essentially, it's what was that pocket with the large shrub before was. There's we were proposing bayberry and common juniper. It doesn't get a lot of water coming up. I think one of the things we do have around there is you have common juniper along the edge of the bank as it wraps around further to the, I guess I'll say it's further to the north, call it northeast, wraps around that big chunk of ledge that you saw on the back of that photo. We have some common juniper up there, kind of in the middle of the slope and a little bit down toward the lower edges and some at the top. It's all suffering. There's no question. There's nothing that looks pristine, that's for sure. But it's a pocket that I don't think is going to have a lot of flow. You're correct about the storm. In storms, it is going to have that, Tom, I think. The normal tide state.
On your map, you can see the rack line is pretty high on the beach here.
It is.
Charlotte, if you look at say April 2nd, 2023 here, you can see two rack lines here, and the upper one actually is significantly higher than the lower one. Presumably these are marking the latest significant high and low tides that had at least had some, there must have been small swells or whitecaps or something here to define it.
Yeah, it is.
But that upper rack line points right at that rock sticking out and presumably right into that dark area there that's being fed by discharging groundwater and perhaps that pipe as well.
That pipe it's where it discharges exactly, Charlotte, right there, and following the dark extension toward the water. That's where that water flows, and it was flowing hard that day I was there more recently during one of those more recent storms. Well, a month ago, what have you. And so it's that pocket that's above it. It sits above it in grade. Sits it by the large. There's a large boulder there too. So that's essentially where we were proposing to put those grouping of shrubs in that area where the previous shrub had been removed, that larger shrub had been removed. Yep. And that's really all I want to present to you. I think that Mike wanted to find out is if, moving the large shrub, we still showed about 11 shrubs going in. I don't remember what that old shrub was, to be honest, what species it was. What you do find in a few pockets here along that bank is you find a privet hedge is growing there, which we don't want to put in, of course. but it is alive further down, I'd say to the north. It's some that is uphill a little ways, kind of near the top of the bank. Certainly we wouldn't replant something like that.
So again,
So-
this is a challenging spot. This is just based on the grain size. You're not looking at sand here, looking at gravel and cobbles. And so it's a high energy beach. So getting anything started here is going to be tough.
It is. It's going to be very difficult, but we were thinking we would pull back some of the stone that's there now, put it in sandy loam, still redistribute the same stone at the base of the shrubs. It's still a little bit uphill, so it's still a little ways up, sitting around elevation 16-ish, 17. So we felt like that was our best shot at it. Otherwise, we're into that the ledge that wraps around into that area, the ledge, and then the storm sewer that discharges. So we were going to that pocket again, about 14 feet in length, about 8 to 9 feet in width. We felt like planting these fairly close together would work. It would be our best shot, frankly.
Well, it's you know, you can only give it a shot. That's all you can really do here. Sean, I have a couple comments, and they're not to you because I know your position on this. I just want to make these comments to the commission. The intent of the owner was always to have a big sandy beach here, and to clear cut as much vegetation out of the base of this wall as he could. That's what he wanted to do. He told us, I mean, that was the earliest plan. It was rejected. You know, you leave what's there, which included much of the hillside lawn, and not extend this sandy beach. This owner has gotten exactly what he wanted by absolutely ignoring what the commission has said. And I'm going to say to the commission that in situations like this, the commission needs to talk to town council and the select board and actually impose fines, because this is a situation where complete disregard for what the commission said has been put into practice. And this isn't the first person who did it, but you know, from day one, that they argued what the commission wanted, and in their back pocket they knew that they weren't going to comply with what the commission said. I think that all they can possibly do is what Sean's showing here is, okay, here's a little bit of mitigation, but I really believe that when it comes to certificates of compliance, and it's right there in the title, did they comply or did they not comply? You know, this is total non-compliance. And so there are two solutions for non-compliance. One is a fine, which we don't have in our bylaws at this time, and two is to not give them a certificate. Now, I don't know if that even matters unless they're selling the property. If they're selling the property, then it matters. But again, the only solution if someone wants to sell the property is, okay, we'll mitigate what we did, which is, you know, it's counter to what the purpose of the Conservation Commission is. And obviously what Sean is showing here is mitigation, potentially the only mitigation that can actually, you know, start to substitute for this one particular area. You know, I don't know what else to say.
Well, I would say that the area is considerably bigger than the proposed mitigation. If you look, for example, at June 28th of 2021, there's actually a lot of brush here.
There was, yes.
Charlotte? Your map, 2021, June 8th or June 28th, 2021.
I think your earlier comment though, Tom, which is, you know, if he tries to extend this area of mitigation out into the beach area, chances are it's going to get washed away. These volunteers, you know, they got established during some calm times and then they were able to grow up. I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to do it. Look at that beach. What a beach.
Yeah, it really fits the,
That's not even when it came to I don't think there was any sand there when it came to commission. It was all asphalt.
Yeah, there's asphalt and some other, to your point, there was some vegetation at grade, Chris, I think. There was it's kind of asphalt all over that site, so it's kind of, they put asphalt every place, so nuns would.
Well, I mean, I don't think there was ever, well, I could be, it's been a long time, but I don't think the beach ever went out that way. I think the whole intent was to maintain as much of that vegetation so that it you know, stabilized that area. It was stable, so don't mess with it.
So how do we move forward here? Your suggestion of fines are probably off the table.
Yeah.
The denial of a certificate of completion seems feasible. And maybe we can extend this to the point where it looks like they have survived. We generally, I don't know that we're restricted to 3 growing seasons, but we might extend that beyond that. At the very least, we should not give a certificate of compliance for the next 3 years until we know that it's established.
But can't we issue fines for show cause?
Well,
Fines are.
A fine doesn't do anything here. Well, I mean, we're trying to restore this, and
Well, I was thinking in addition to,
oh, yeah, that's tough.
because it's so egregious. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it's really tough we've been told by council that it's very hard to sustain these fines in the face of court. Is that right, Charlotte?
Realistically, yes, but we do have in our bylaws for wetlands and for stormwater, but right now we're just dealing with a wetlands permit here. We do have the ability to impose fines, and we kind of mirror section 21D of the Mass General Laws for non-criminal disposition, where for each violation, it can be up to $300 a day. But you know, like I said, the fines can be obviously appealed in court. By the time y'all go to court, it's kind of like you said, it's like, where does that really get us? You know, the solution in a lot of cases with enforcement and compliance issues is usually mitigation. So it can be done the easy way or the hard way, with or without fines, or with or without an enforcement order. So it's kind of up to the commission here. I mean, every site is different. Every project we see is different. I definitely think it's worth a larger conversation about COCs, which we can talk about later, because I think that was one of my suggestions that I brought forth to the commission earlier in December. So, but at least for this project, if we can give, Sean an answer either on the COC or further guidance on what they would need to do to get a COC, if ever. So, yeah, I think that's really what we're faced with here. And if the commission is whether or not they're satisfied with the mitigation that's been proposed tonight.
I wouldn't vote to give them one until they grew everything back. That's
Okay.
just me.
So consider if we find them $300 a day for 3 years, that's over $300,000. There's no way we could prevail in court on that. any court would look and say this. is
I don't know. That's a,
Just a bunch
I
of.
don't know if
trash.
that's true.
Can we charge them $300,000 for this violation?
I don't know. That's tough.
I think our better course forward is to just withhold a certificate of compliance until Sean works his magic down there and he's got 3 good growing seasons behind him.
Yeah,
Okay.
agree.
The other,
So would you pull over the image for, yeah. Okay.
so the other,
It's hard to see there in April because it hasn't been leaf out. So if you go one more, yeah, and you should probably instead of October, you should try to see if there's a June 2023 one or close to June on the other side. Yeah, July. That's probably close enough.
If you click on the view, you can do mirror view and side by side, which does side by side.
Oh, a new trick. All right.
Now you can change the date on one to the other.
Pretty slick.
Love this program. Charlotte, you can actually hit the X on the location, upper right of the location to remove that box,
Mhm.
which will help. There you go.
yeah, sorry, it was hidden for me because that's where all the faces are for Zoom.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna really be a pain. Can you pull up the approved plan?
Yes, give me 1 second.
You mirror that in as a third one?
No, sadly, I'm not smart enough right now to try and do that.
We actually could. There is a way of doing that, I think. You can add your own stuff to Near Map. So I've put in all the states and my own digitizing of wetlands in Near Map and the buffers, which Charlotte has. This is a really handy program. So I've been able to put in the tax parcels and the wetlands and their buffers. So I need to add.
I'm sorry,
the,
this will,
riverfront.
I'm sorry, this is a scan. I apologize. I didn't have an electronic version of the approved plan, but this was the approved plan, so I can zoom in. But these lines, that vertical lines down the center of the, that was the folded page, so. But this was the original plan that was approved. It was dated June 2020 and the order was issued June 25th, 2020. So this is interim agent time.
That's never been a good time for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is still Jeff Summers. I'm sorry. He left in 2021. I apologize. Sorry. This is still Jeff Summers.
Sean, is there a new owner or is this the same owner?
It would be the same owner, yeah, so it'd still be the same owner. Who bought it from the Catholic Church, Catholic Diocese, I think.
Because I'm looking here and I see concrete retaining wall and remove existing concrete retaining wall and replace with boulder wall, which isn't what's there. I mean, it's not a boulder wall. It's a a wet set concrete wall now. It's not even boulders.
No, it's not wet set. No, they did it all dry. And I wasn't around when they were building.
But it's not a boulder. It's not a boulder wall.
It's stone wall with basically rubble built in. It really is not a concrete poured wall, I promise you.
Look like mortar.
No, it doesn't say concrete. It says remove the existing concrete and replace with a boulder wall.
It's some version of stone stacked and
Yes.
layered in with other rubble.
Okay, so it's a dry stack wall,
Correct.
which is not a boulder wall.
Yeah, it's not exactly boulder wall. It was, yeah, those two things were not built, right? So that.
Correct. Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to highlight that these were not done. So these were the activities that were not done. The wall was obviously built, but per the engineer's previous clarification, it appears wider than the approved design. But the problem with this approved plan is it never specified, it never had the specs for the wall. So it really just said boulder wall. It didn't specify the height, the width, the layers, anything like that.
Well, you know, a boulder wall is going to have some variation to it, but they're not showing it laid back or anything like that. They're showing big
Mhm.
stacked boulders on top of each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm just repeating myself when I say this plan is not what was approved, and that's all there is to it. I
Mhm.
mean,
So I think to move forward here, Sean, the ball is really in your court to come up with something that's going to thrive there.
Yep.
In that corner. Fortunately, you have a good supply of fresh water. Unfortunately, you have some salt water that's going to encroach on this from time to time. So come up with a plan that I think needs to be more extensive than you've shown. If you look at that June 2021 shot, there's quite a bit of brush there. It does say remove invasive plant materials with a leader to the area around that drain.
Yeah.
I would infer that meant the Phragmites. We don't really know what the real plant was. In 2021, it doesn't look like there was much Phragmites there because there was a canopy from what was probably native brush.
It was brush, but and I think that was the large shrub, Chris, you were talking about when you said in one of the photos. Yeah, that large shrub, and it was at the edge of the concrete that I had seen was at the edge of the concrete. Yeah, that's June of 2021, almost looks like it was hard to say, but almost like an in progress beach construction.
If you move your down to the next brush to the south.
Yeah. Yep.
Charlotte, up.
Sorry.
Up.
Wait, so you want me to go
Keep going down.
going down?
No. Yeah, not that far. Just see that there's a big section of brush.
There is.
Mhm. Like this side?
There, that one. Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, I don't know which view I'm supposed to be looking at here.
I know it's confusing, but that obviously was. Thanks, Chris. I should learn to do that too. So those clearly formed a good canopy, kept the Phragmites out.
Yeah.
Chances are those are native plants or were native plants. And were those to be restored in some magical way, John, you wouldn't have a Phragmites problem.
Yeah.
And you probably would have some resistance since they were big, and the occasional saltwater bath they got, they look really healthy in 2021, don't they?
They do. They do.
Yeah. So
okay.
How do you fix this?
I think we look at those areas and try to extend vegetation more to the degree you see here.
Yeah, what you've drawn is that brush pile, just that brush just to the north of that large sort of kidney-shaped one to the south.
Yep.
So why haven't you addressed the removal of that one?
I didn't know that there was removal of anything right there.
It's clearly gone.
With the June 28th, 2021 area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys need to get a subscription to Near Map too.
I already wrote it down. Yeah.
You can fight fire with fire next time you show up, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly. So why don't we show an extended planting area and we'll represent that on this next go round. And to your point, and I believe several of you brought it up, the thought of, just to make sure I can get back to Mike on it, would be that you really wouldn't intend to do a COC until these newly vegetated areas had survived at least a few seasons, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I think we'll decide on that, how long we are going to require at that time. But keep in mind that generally it's 3 years.
Yep.
And we might look to a longer time if we can.
Poison ivy will survive in there pretty good.
Virginia creeper probably would too.
Can you guys buy poison ivy at the nursery?
I don't think I've ever attempted to, but I mean, Virginia creeper is one we'd almost never put on a plan, but you know what? There might be a spot where you might do something like that. I don't know.
Well, it's not going to produce a canopy.
No, it won't.
And as I said, the advantage here to a canopy is hopefully you're going to block out the light for Phragmites.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe some beach plums would still be able to grow in there along with the bayberry. So that might be the other thing we look at.
Okay.
Really, it's down to just a handful of different plants. If we're keeping native, it's one of 4 or 5 plants probably we would propose there.
So if you were Chris, or even Chris, were to speculate, what do you think those shrubs were there that looked to be so healthy? And
You know, I looked it up at one time and I can't even remember what it was.
I actually think they're, because further up the bank, there really are privet hedge growing right out of the hillside.
It wasn't a privet though, because I remember Eric asking me and I went and I took a leaf sample and everything, but I don't remember what it was. I could probably look it up.
You think it would have been beach plum, Chris?
No, it wasn't beach plum.
No, it didn't have that look. Would have been some sort of salix.
It might have been.
I think
It had a funny little leaf to it. I'll have to look. I'll see if I can find it.
whatever it was, it seems to have been doing quite well there, and maybe you need to figure out what it was and put the same thing in.
Yeah, maybe sort of will.
I don't know when these photos were taken, but this was from the original,
Yeah, there was
previous agent.
Phragmites to get rid of.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I can't tell when these photos were taken, but I imagine it was around the time the NOI was filed, which could have been after any stuff might have been removed. I mean, you'd still see the large like shrub here, but you definitely see some Phragmites here.
Yeah, but that's a good sized shrub right there.
Yeah.
And the one
It was big. It was
and the
very
one to
big.
the left of it
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, those two, and I think those are the ones you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and all these ones in the background got removed too. I'm not sure if they're in the buffer, but they all got removed
Mhm.
next to the kayaks. All that.
Yeah, so this is probably after they may or may not have been taken out.
Okay.
So maybe later in 2020.
Mhm.
Actually, no, maybe 2021, I guess. Hold on. The permit was issued. Permit was issued June 25th, 2020. So these photos should have been taken around May or June of 2020.
So
I mean, I don't have a date though to confirm that. That's the problem. Can try to look at the properties of the photo to determine the date.
it looks like the neighbor has a patch of the same stuff. And you thought it was privet, Sean?
There were pockets of privet further up the coastline.
So Charlotte, if you look at April 2nd of 2023, you can see in fact, maybe even more recently. Yeah, even July of 2023, you can see it doesn't look like privet to me, but
Are you talking about right in there?
I know I'm a geologist, so
Are you talking about right by the big concrete slab there?
yeah.
Yeah, that's still there. That's their property also. So
Yeah, so it looks like it might be the same plant.
I'll take another look.
The green is the same hue and may not be the same as the kidney shaped one, but it certainly looks similar to the ones between the kidney and that strip there. So maybe if you look at that and see what it is and think, well, okay, it likes it here. If it's a native, that might be what you go with.
One of those is a privet, but the other one may not be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know this is complicated, but I kind of do have to run for procedural purposes. So the current order of conditions has since expired. Since it was issued after the start of the pandemic, it did not qualify for the COVID tolling provisions. So at this time, we do not have a current permit. So the way I see it is the commission I'm going to try to narrow it down to 2 options. One of them is to, of course, vote on whether or not a COC is issued tonight and give that decision to the applicant. And then the second decision will obviously be whether the applicant should apply for a new RDA or notice of intent to complete the plantings Or, I know this can sound scary, but it might actually end up working out because it's still technically a permit, is an enforcement order. So if the commission were to issue an enforcement order requiring a fully, developed mitigation plan to restore what has been removed and wasn't in compliance with the order, we can specify times and parameters to give the applicant enough time to do that. That would technically cover the applicant and whoever does the work to finish the planting work, monitor it for a couple seasons. So either way, whether you issue a new RDA, like a determination, order of conditions, or an enforcement order. And as you guys have seen with other enforcement situations, the enforcement order will stay open until the work is completed. So you do have a couple options. Both have pros and cons. The permitting will definitely take more time and be more work up front, whereas the enforcement order is more of, again, an enforcement permit. It might actually cost the applicant less. I know that's not our problem, but pros and cons. The only caveat is obviously every day the applicant does not comply with the enforcement order will result in fines. So there's a couple options there. Not sure what is more attractive at the moment, but that's the way I see it of how this can move forward.
So we could levy a fine of as much as $300 a day with an enforcement order, but that seems egregious to me. What if we have a nominal one or an escalating one? Like 50 cents a day while they're really showing evidence that they're moving forward. And then if we feel that they're failing in their responsibilities, we escalate that.
Or what about if it doesn't start until it's practical in terms of like the planting seasons?
Yeah. We like suspending the fee until it's feasible to actually start on this. I mean, I don't see levying a fine when
it gives them time to plan.
nobody can do anything about it, right? That doesn't seem fair to me. So I like the sound of the enforcement order, but I don't like the sound of levying a fine when arbitrarily. We should have the ability to prod them if necessary, but if it's not necessary, then I don't think there should be a fine.
So would you recommend an enforcement order to produce a finalized restoration plan to be submitted to the commission and then start the work by a certain date? And if the work doesn't appear to be moving forward, the commission can issue fines as they see fit. You'd have to vote on the fines, but I think that's easy to keep it simple in general, so that just knowing that the commission can charge anywhere from 50 cents to $300 a day for every day that the permit is not in compliance.
I'd be comfortable with that. And I can only speak.
I
for
also.
myself.
It seems
Could
good.
we though, I was leaning towards make them do a new NOI, get a new order of conditions for the mitigation that we'd require because they took all this out. But I don't know what the administrative process is. Do we have to do an
The
enforcement order?
enforcement order can specify for them to submit a new NOI. You do have that option in the enforcement order form. I will just say DEP generally discourages that, only because not only does it extend the process, orders of conditions once they're issued can also be appealed, whereas an enforcement order is a bit harder of a stance there. I think you can still try to appeal enforcement orders. I'm not sure what the process is for there, but yeah, the reason why DEP recommends keeping enforcement through the enforcement order is it's a simplicity thing, and it's also a time thing. Like if you want something done and you want it quickly, you issue an enforcement order to ensure that it's done without going, extending the length of it unnecessarily through the permitting process. But we do definitely have that option in the enforcement order. You can check off filing a notice of intent within a certain time frame. Other than, yeah.
It was I'm on board for just doing the enforcement order, like Tom said, but it was an indirect way of causing more cost, guess, without it being a fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah. So yeah, you definitely do have the option to specify a notice of an after the fact notice of intent in the enforcement order, and or just a mitigation plan, cease and desist options. So I can pull up the form if you guys want to see the options, but you definitely have all of those.
When did this permit expire?
The permit would have expired, June 25th, 2023.
And that included COVID extension?
So it didn't get a COVID extension because the permit was issued after the start of the pandemic, which was March 10th, 2020. So any permit that was issued after that date does not qualify for the COVID tolling extensions. So this permit was outside that window, so it doesn't get any extension from the 3-year time frame.
Is there such a thing as an extension after the fact, once it expires?
No.
No.
Yeah, you can only extend a permit, at least per our regulations, within 30 to 90 days of the permit's expiration. So we can't, and I don't think the Wetlands Protection Act, you can't extend an expired permit. It has to be active.
So I think we're sending the right signal here with a enforcement order. It sounds on the face of it, it sounds tougher, but in fact, it's less bureaucratic, I think, than an NOI. And I think we can accomplish the same thing. We still are not going to issue a certificate of compliance until the enforcement order has been terminated. It just seems like that might actually be the easiest way. And it sounds like we have a lot of options. If we want to put the spurs to them, we can with a fine, but we don't have to. And the termination of the extension order is at our discretion. It doesn't have a clock on it, right?
Of the enforcement order? Yeah, you would specify the time frame, and then you would vote when to close it. So to my knowledge, enforcement orders don't have like an expiration date, like an order of conditions.
Yeah.
Only, yeah.
So we're not restricted to that 3-year.
I don't believe so, no. Unless you were to put it in the enforcement order form that it's only valid for a certain time. But I don't remember an option like that being on the form. Really, the timeline deadlines would be for when you want stuff.
So we could say something that the enforcement order is valid for either satisfactory regrowth or 10 years.
I would keep it general. I can say like until the commission, until mitigation is satisfactorily completed up to the, commission's whatever. I'd recommend maybe keeping it general. Don't box yourself in.
Yeah, right. But my point is that it gives us a lot of discretion for the time period that it's done. Of course, we want to see it get done as soon as possible, but and the planting certainly should be expedited. Whether or not these plants actually are established or not, this is going to be a very hard thing to predict right up against the ocean like this.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah, and I truly think that it's my personal opinion that the quickest way to see this done is through an enforcement order and not through filing a new permit, which would just
So does that require a motion to authorize you to?
Yes. So you can do it into one motion or two to vote on the COC and issue an enforcement order. So you might, I don't know, maybe for clarity, do it in 2 motions, or you can do it in one if you can list all the conditions in one big motion.
So in terms of the compliance, we would simply vote to deny certificate of compliance.
Yes.
And followed by a vote to create this enforcement order, right?
I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah. Okay.
And did you say if we change the fine amount, that we need to vote on it like per day or?
So the process with fines is difficult, but long story short, the commission has to vote to issue fines, and they have to be ratified at following meetings as well for additional fines. So for every day that the enforcement order is not complied with, we can issue fines. Like for example, like if let's say they don't plant the day that we expect them to, I can issue fines, and then you would have to ratify them and vote on them at the meetings, and they have to be sent in a very specific form. So yeah, I think if you want to specify any increments or issuance of fines in general, you can put it in the order, but it is already kind of assumed that for every day that you don't comply with the order will result in fines. But I can pull up the specific form so you guys can see it for reference, but yeah, that's usually how it goes.
So,
The enforcement order is like a legal command if they don't follow it.
yeah, so we don't have to start with a fine. If we vote for an enforcement order, can we delay voting on a fine at a later date?
I think you can, yeah, because you have
When we
the
think that they aren't-
flexibility.
When they aren't working, when they aren't acting in good faith.
Correct, yeah. So at least normally how it's done is you do obviously what you have to do, and then if that doesn't work, enforcement order, and if that doesn't work, fines. That's usually the general enforcement process that's usually recommended in the DEP
We don't-
enforcement manual.
So knowing that we can levy a fine in the future
Yes,
doesn't require that we start with one.
correct. And I can pull up the form, but it does say failure to comply with this order, the enforcement order, may constitute grounds for legal action. Massachusetts general law provides, et cetera, et cetera. It also lists the criminal violations, but then under our bylaws, we can go under non-criminal disposition. So it's already written in the form itself that the commission can take additional legal action. And then I will just note at any point, you can vote to amend the enforcement order. So that is something that can be taken into consideration.
That's a
But-
flexibility that we would have over NOI, for example, or the conditions.
So if you change your minds on whether or not the applicant needs to, do anything else from what we vote on, then you can change that. It just has to be voted on.
Mhm.
Preferably with the applicant aware of that.
So-
But yeah,
so-
so this is what you have as options. So I'll go past the findings page. So this is what you have. This is what a typical form looks like. So you can issue the cease and desist, which I don't think we want to do here because we want planting work done. You have to resource area alterations from mitigation shall be restored to original condition, restoration plan with any following conditions. And then whether or not you want them to submit an NOI, no further work shall be performed until et cetera has been issued. So this is like an order of conditions side. This is more of the we want a mitigation side.
I feel more comfortable with this item C order rather than.
This one?
And I'm just one. I don't mean to, drive the bus here. We're gonna,
Well, shouldn't we check all three, Charlotte,
Um,
on the first page?
This one's kind of tough because I don't know if you want to issue a cease and desist for,
you want them to.
I mean,
get
it could be
to work.
any additional activity, obviously. So you could, of course, select that for any additional activity until a restoration plan is provided.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Then they submit the plan and then they go in and fix it.
Correct. And then resource area alterations shall be corrected to resource area's original condition. If you put a cease and desist in here, I don't know if this might contradict that. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely the restoration plan though.
okay. And then you guys wanted, I think for now, what we've done with other enforcement situations is we want a restoration plan provided by a certain date, then we approve that, and then you issue an amended enforcement order for when the planting work needs to be completed. But you guys can do that in, we could obviously put it as a condition here that once a plan is approved, the work has to start at a certain day or something, and then you could say this, you could put this on and say, as a condition, once the restoration plan is approved, it has to start on a certain day and, then et cetera. But at least for us, with our recent experience, we've done this in parts where you give us the plan first and then we amend the order, keep it open, and then just monitor it while the work is done.
Well, let's give them as much flexibility as we can. This is, I think this is gonna be a tough one. They obviously, I mean, this is also a case where you've got somebody who wants to do something and they just go ahead and do it. But I'd rather see this fixed than see punishment.
Yes,
I agree.
and sorry to clarify my previous comment. Yes, they can appeal enforcement orders. It has to be filed with Superior Court directly, not with DEP.
So again, to get what we want, if we load the bus here full of really onerous things, we might slow the process down.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's start light, and it sounds like we can escalate if we need to.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm most comfortable with that sort of approach, I think.
So I think first I would make a decision on the COC first.
Okay,
But,
so I move to deny the application for a certificate of completion.
Second,
We'll have a vote on that. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 5-0. Okay, so now in terms of the enforcement order, we simply move to authorize you to fill out the enforcement order. What do we do here?
you would vote to issue an enforcement order with whatever orders that you will check in this list here.
Okay, so I think your suggestion that we simply do that simple, a restoration plan shall be filled with the issuing authority on or before, and the date, how long you need, Sean, to come up with a plan that's just a killer plan, it's gonna work.
Well, I think we'll still do that plan still this winter. Plant material probably available. We don't always know if plant material is gonna be available in April, but will it be available in May, early May or something like that? More than likely, and it's hard to tell. Usually it's May-ish when we can get the plants from the nursery, when they can do that and have their contractor do it. So that's when I think it will actually take place.
So we could give you 90 days to come up with a plan, and you'd be,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're fine with that, I think.
90 days.
90 might be a little long, Tom, because if we send them back one more time, then
oh,
he's-
yeah.
then he wants- How
Yeah,
about we do 60 days?
Okay, so that would be,
or even 45 days. That gives you a lot of time, Sean.
that would be March 5th, 2024.
Yeah,
You're
Giving you job security.
a new plan by March 5th.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then luckily there is a meeting, I believe, on March 7th, so that would put you in the time frame to come back to the commission.
so just to be clear, Sean, you are going to be dealing with a plan that runs across basically the whole front of that,
Correct.
whole
Correct.
front of that new wall.
Everything that runs from ledge to ledge, basically.
Ledge to ledge, that's right, ledge to ledge.
That's accurate.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm coming up with suggested language, but you guys can discuss this
That's
too.
It's looking good so far.
That looks good.
Your other boundary would be probably mean high water.
Yeah.
Above mean high water.
No, it's gotta be higher than that.
It'll be higher than that, probably quite a ways higher, but it,
Yeah, what are the elevations there? What do you think at
on.
the edge of the
It was-
existing vegetation?
From 10 to 15, 16, up until the wall was about 16, potentially 17. So
Yeah.
it's like started at 10, goes all the way up diagonally.
But it felt like that 15, if that corner, that northernmost corner was around 15, 14 to 15 elevation, but the rest of that is going to be at a higher elevation.
Well, call it historic high water.
Yep.
The record, basically.
Okay. The aerial photos, the historical aerial photos are incredibly helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea, Charlotte, because the
Mhm.
plants themselves define where they can exist and where they can't.
Mhm.
And it seems unrealistic to try to get anything growing below where things were thriving beforehand. And that comes closest to restoration prior to disturbance. So I think that's probably the right language you're using there.
Okay, yeah, so I was trying to think of like a way you could word it with the date. So we were looking at June 28th, 21 of what the area kind of looked like before it was after the permit was issued, but before the work began. So I don't know if we want to do, for simplicity purposes, maybe around the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough, but I mean, you have to kind of be pretty specific here. So I don't know if it's best to write a date or not, but as long as you're specific with deadlines, I think that's what matters. But I don't know if you guys want me to write before, because again, the permit was issued in June 2020, but the aerial imagery we're looking at was in 2021, a year later.
Like prior to the
Sorry, Will?
applicant's can you say something like prior to the applicant's alteration of the area instead of a specific date?
I think the alterations occurred periodically over the last several years if we're to keep going back. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I was looking at 2020 briefly and it looked like there were changes between 2020 and 2021. So I'm like, I don't really know what date to pick. You could just say, you could give a time frame like from within like the last 3± years, I guess. Keep it general. I don't know.
So we're not concerned about anything above the coastal bank?
Oh, you could do that too. I didn't know. Yeah.
You mean artificial beach? Is that what you're
Well,
talking about? Or
all along the
or-
beach
or-
and all along the rock. I mean, they basically cleared it all out so that they could look at rock.
Okay.
I mean, I you know.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. They ripped it all off that's growing down this side.
you go back to 14, 15, and 16, it's pretty heavily vegetated there.
Yeah, so it's like, where do you draw the line? I would say from, maybe the last, you could say from when the permit was issued. I think that's a very simple time point, because that's like, we issued the permit in June
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That seems defensible. So when was the permit issued? What was the date?
It was June 25th, 2020. June 25th, 2020 is when it was issued.
Okay, so I'm looking at October 4th as the closest time to that, or March 14th. You can't really see much on March 14th because it's after the leaf fall. But if you look at October 4th, 2020, get a real good idea of where stuff can survive and where it can't. Looks pretty robust in this image.
Of course I can't. I can put it on another page. I was going to say at a subsequent show cause hearing, but
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable? Any other conditions? And I can write them on another page.
Yep.
Sean, does that sound good to you?
Yep.
March 5th, give us a plan below the wall and adjacent to the upland ledge area along the northern property border that provide vegetation coverage similar to the existing, to the previously existing site conditions from the order's date of issuance. And I'll specify the order because you do that in the form.
Yeah, is that the area you were discussing that's up above the ledge?
Yeah, the like.
Yep. Up,
Uh,
get to that concrete.
So like this area up here,
Yeah.
is north, right? I'm not.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I said like northern.
Right in that
Say
area.
the northern, we could say like northern edge, northern ledge area, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they wanted to uncover those stairs. So there was something big growing right there and they wanted to uncover them, but that whole right up to the stairs had a pretty robust.
Yeah. Well, at least in that 50-foot buffer zone.
Yeah.
the Coastal bank.
Right.
The stairs are actually out in the 100, so it seems like the 50-foot buffer. Excuse me, at the very least.
Okay. So I just said the northerly upland ledge area above the wall. I know that's probably repetitive, but that might be specific. I could just say northerly ledge area, or I could say upland. I don't know, whatever you guys want.
Fine, it's fine how it is.
Okay. And then that's kind of, we're not asking for an NOI at this time, and then no further work shall be performed. And I know that's related to the order conditions,
No,
so,
you're fine. You're good.
okay. So we don't want to do cease and desist or anything like that?
No.
No, okay, all right. So Tom, sorry, you might have to reread your motion with this condition that's listed
Yeah.
here.
Right, so I make a motion to order an enforcement order with the conditions of under item C order, with the restoration plan shall be filled with issuing authority on or before March 5th, 2024, box checked for the following: provide a restoration plan for restoring the coastal bank area below the existing stone wall with native species and adjacent to the northerly upland ledge area above the wall that provides vegetation coverage to the previously existing site conditions for the order's date of issuance 6/25/20. Plan shall be reviewed and approved by the commission at a subsequent show cause hearing.
Second.
Restoration shall be completed in accordance with conditions and timetable established by the issuing authority. Is there anything more necessary in that motion? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 5-0-0.
Okay, Sean, I will do my best to get that out tomorrow. I
Okay.
have site visits all day, but I will try. All
I understand where it is.
right, thank you, Sean.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right,
Okay,
you
yes.
guys want updates or want me to postpone them?
It's 9:51. Oh, Charlotte, do some of them
Go
anyway.
ahead.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just ask you guys, I had one 48-hour issue and it was mostly just the email thing, but I think we've already answered that. Nobody's been having email issues, right?
What?
The one only 48-hour issue that I had was just, is anyone experiencing email issues like OneDrive, not getting emails, et cetera, that I can look into? No?
I
Shake your
haven't
heads.
logged
Okay.
into all that stuff again, but
Okay.
it's
And
all-
then from this list, I don't know if you guys can see the agenda, but does anyone, do you want me to pull up the agenda? Does anyone want me to go through any of these major updates, or do I just want me to just run through it quickly?
Run through the construction updates quickly, just so we know what might be coming.
Okay. All right, I'll do Border Street last. So 15 Windy Hill Road, this was an addition and mitigation project in the outer riparian zone of the riverfront area that started construction. No further updates. This was about a month ago. So, you know, these are like the ones that I've kept postponing. So these are a little old. 37 Parker Ave was the parking project that's right next to the boat ramp. They're pretty much done. We haven't done like a final site inspection yet. I was going to go out to the site to look at everything before they file a COC, but the weather's been really terrible. So we'll probably set up something, I would hope, for next week. Beechwood Street, the enforcement order that we have right now that's active, they just completed in the fall, per our enforcement order, they completed the fall planting work and provided a status update and a report from ECR. And so they will come back in the spring to evaluate it again and check for invasives and provide a supplementary report within the next growing season. 216 Atlantic Ave, this is another like more soft enforcement issue with cutting down some trees. They had provided a full restoration plan, replacing the trees 1-to-1 within the 100-foot buffer and 2-to-1 within the 50-foot buffer. All native species original to the dead trees that were removed. They will be starting work in the spring, still working with ECR. There's been a lot of activity on Jerusalem Road, so I'm going to go through this quickly. 724 Jerusalem Road was a stormwater permit. They finished blasting earlier in December. There were concerns from the Howe Road abutters who were downgrading of the work. So I will be going to the site tomorrow to kind of look at it. Blasting, as you guys know, is very difficult, kind of outside of my jurisdiction. So really all I can do is just make sure the plan's being followed and their erosion controls are up and active. 725 Jerusalem Road, right across the way, the house came down. It's quickly going back up. This was a raise and rebuild of a house that had burned down. So they are quickly moving along and they're hoping to try and finish by the end of the year. 808 Jerusalem Road, that is the affordable housing that is right at the corner of Jerusalem and Hall Street. They have come to us with an RDA submission. They unfortunately could not come to us tonight because of some public notice deadlines, but they will come back to us next meeting. And then the Greek Church has finished work and they are filing for a COC. So I will be reviewing that one either for the next meeting or for February. And that's it, unless you guys want me to briefly go through the other updates.
No, that sounds good.
No, okay. All right.
Unless somebody else wants to.
Oh, sorry, border. I missed border.
Yes.
Yeah.
There have been some wind issues because, we're in a velocity zone. So the fencing that they had put up with the screens, those keep coming down in windstorms. So I've talked to the harbor master. She's concerned because one of the fences literally almost blew into the harbor. So we need to look at that. I may ask them to temporarily take the screenings down because they're only really working on the inside of the building. The screens will probably go back up when they've obviously started to work on the outside of the building. So I'd rather the windscreens come down because they have 2 layers of fences and they have a dumpster that's been covered with a tarp. So at least right now at this time in construction, I don't see the windscreens coming out as more of an issue. I think it's more of an issue if they stay in and the fences keep blowing into the harbor / into the road. So I'm probably going to tell them to maybe take them out for now, but put them back in the spring once they start doing more of like the roof work and once they start ripping up the parking lot, obviously. So this is probably going to have to be a
They
very,
don't have any tiebacks, right?
oh, sorry,
I don't recall seeing any tiebacks on those fences.
tiebacks as in like,
Like a weight that ties it back and secures it inside.
I don't know. I don't really think so. They on the other side, they like tried to support it up with like plywood against like, it's kind of a,
Yeah, well, it's gonna blow
Yeah.
over in like 30.
this will probably have to be a dynamic erosion control thing where we may have to tweak and modify things as the seasons go along. This is going to turn into probably a few year, project because they have to do it in phases. Thanks to the, FEMA stuff and building code stuff. So, I may have to obviously be calibrating the approved erosion control plan each time. And you guys are already aware of like some of the other changes that we made. And those changes will also have to be reevaluated once they switch to phase 2. So this is something that I'm probably just going to have to keep kind of tweaking and modifying given the concerns with weather being right in the middle of the velocity zone too. So I'll keep you guys posted, but yeah.
There are ways to make fences stay up.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of ways. It sounds really
There's a lot of
amateur
ways.
that
Yeah.
their
Yeah,
fence is blowing
I mean,
away.
that's, a 5-pound sandbag doesn't do much.
Yeah, they could
could-
put in heavier sandbags for sure.
They can
You
put
could even-
concrete.
They could put
Yeah,
concrete
you
in.
you can drive them into the ground. You can drive the posts in. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, that's
You
just
can put-
lazy.
You can
If
put wind holes in the scrim. There,
Mhm.
Charlotte, every day I work in Boston, there's this building next to me that they've completely encapsulated. I keep forgetting,
Mhm.
but I'll send you a picture of,
Okay,
that's what they've been doing down there is
okay.
it's
Yeah,
anchored back
this-
to the building. It's completely encapsulated.
Yeah, if you can send me photos or any information about that, that'd be great. Because this is obviously a completely different site from Elm Street. We did not have these issues on Elm Street, at least since I've been here. I don't know about before I started, but we did not have these issues. So because this property is right up in the velocity zone, so they're subject to a lot more of the wind action than Elm
They
Street
should
was.
be- When they're right next to a sidewalk like that, it should be
Yep.
standard that they have like an angled securing system that keeps it from blowing on.
Yeah, I don't think the plywood angled system on the other side was really doing much. So.
Oh, it's working like a sail.
Yeah, there's also, this is outside of my parameters, but that parking lot is kind of a mess because the owner has a boat in there. It's somebody else's boat. And then the people who are working across the street at 49 Border either rented or leased the other side of the parking lot with their stuff. So it's like, it's just very crowded in there. And so that's their problem to figure out of how they need to secure the fences and if they have to move some stuff around, But Yeah, so there's a lot going on in there. But yeah, Will, if you can send me that information, that'd be great, of how to secure a windy site like that with the fences and how they, kind of encapsulate it. That'd be awesome.
They're gonna have to get an engineer to say they can tie it back to the building, which I think they balked at before, but they should, because that's the right
Okay.
thing to do.
Okay. All right. Yeah, open to ideas. I'm obviously not a construction site manager, but I'm obviously doing my best.
You're doing
So
great.
any new tips and tricks and methods, I'm happy to absorb it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, just want to be careful, like that they sound like they're lazy, and so if you tell them exactly what to do, and
Yeah.
something goes wrong,
Yeah.
you don't want to be.
I would prefer to give them specific instructions, yeah, because they know I'm gonna be there weekly once they definitely start like the heavy work, they know I joked with them, I said, put my face up on the building because you guys are gonna be seeing it every week. So just make sure your crew knows who I am because I'm gonna be coming in there like a lot. So-
I just say, don't
That's not what
propose,
I meant. I didn't mean give them. I meant the opposite, because if you give them specific
Really?
instructions and something,
don't propose solutions. They're
Oh,
the-
Oh, really?
don't
Oh, so
let-
just tell
don't-
them to figure it out?
they've got- yeah,
dictate their
exactly.
means and methods, and something goes wrong, then you're
Okay.
going to tell them exactly
Yeah.
what to do. instead of
Okay,
being-
so tell them to figure it out and
give
secure the
them-
fence.
Give them some options and tell them
Okay.
that you want it secured, and
Okay.
you can clearly, give them some. They're construction workers. They know.
They got engineers. That's what the engineers are supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yep, happy to, yeah.
with that, I just say, it's been a good meeting tonight.
Wait, Tom, please. I hate to keep everyone, but I gotta ask Charlotte a couple quick questions.
Okay.
Did you ask Lori whether she would be willing to attend a next meeting as far as 70 Border Street's concerned?
I will check in with her, because I told her the hearing was continued, so I'll check in with her and see if she can call in on the 18th. Thank you.
And did you have an answer for my question as to
Which one?
how does that I know we've already given them a permit, but how does their property work? Like the house is across the street, right?
Yeah. Oh, like with relation to the new, like the government wharf and everything? Like of
Yeah.
how that's all gonna work out with the layout and everything?
No, what I want to know is what gives them the right to put that dock there?
I would like to know that also. I was thinking. the same thing.
I'm happy to look into it. I don't know. I just don't know how much we can dig into it because we've already given them a permit,
Yeah, you have it. Unfortunately, they already have a permit because.
Yes, but if
they
they
didn't,
come,
it would have been
once
a
they-
different story.
once they come back for an amendment, all bets are off.
Well, to go beyond that, did we even have to extend it? Like, what would have happened if we just voted not to extend it?
I
You
know,
can appeal our decision, but by then the permit may or may not expire.
well, I mean,
It's only been extended under the original plan, not the amended plan. That's why they're completely separate requests.
so and maybe because you said you gave them my question, right?
I did, yeah, I told them to address
So
the
they may
questions. in the meeting.
they may realize that
Yeah.
that they don't have a right, but if they have the early permit and that's now been extended, then they can at least do that. But the reason I asked that is if they can do that and they don't actually have land ownership on the other side of the road,
Mhm.
then what stops the new building on Elm Street
Mhm.
from coming back and doing the same thing?
Mhm.
Or anyone
Okay.
else? Maybe I should go down there and put in a big dock. So that's why I
Yeah.
wanted Lori to come because
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can give Lori your questions too. Like I already gave them to her in like a summarized form. I was like, our commission has questions about this. We want you to call into the meeting. Can you provide your comments on this amended plan? And what it looks like and how it would have to be done. So I can send like all of your questions directly to Lori and say, just so you know, we've asked this of the applicant. Can you please weigh in on some of this other logistic stuff and land use stuff?
well,
But
the-
yeah,
the other-
so I'll double check with Lori to obviously make sure she can
Yeah.
help us with addressing these
Mhm.
questions on the 18th.
Well, the other thing is if it's possible, we really should be looking at the town project, the expansion of the wharf
Mhm.
and
In relation to this, yeah.
in relation to this, and
Absolutely.
Laura needs to be able to see that and say, wait,
Yeah.
I can't approve that.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know, it's just, all of a sudden, it just seems like things are happening that are,
Mhm.
and you know, meanwhile, Situate's suing Cohasset to take back a bunch of moorings out in the harbor.
Yeah, she's got her hands full. The
Yeah.
town has their hands full in the harbor.
Hey, but you know what? That's when things go awry.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
when people stop paying attention, and all of a sudden you got a big problem.
Mhm.
Did you see the
Yeah, I think-
proposal to rename Cohasset Harbor back to North Situate Harbor?
I didn't see that one yet.
Really?
No.
Well, well, good luck with that, because the USGS Names Committee is now, if it had been named Squaw Harbor or something, yeah,
Yeah.
but changing a geographic name,
Yeah.
I hope they've
Yeah.
got deep pockets, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
The Names
All right.
Committee is famous for dragging its feet or outright rejecting changes of names to geographic features. So
Hmm.
I couldn't expect to see that happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
And I guess they were already talking about sending mooring fee bills and tax bills to everybody on the Situate side of Cohasset Cove
Yep,
for
Mm.
their moorings.
yep.
Yikes.
Yeah, they've already sent the letters out. Yeah, big deal.
Yikes. Yeah, a lot of people are really pissed, obviously. So yeah.
So while we're talking about this area, I would just say that the planning board had a meeting last night where the properties across from the yacht club on the north side of Cohasset Cove are complaining that the development that's going on there is going to be really problematic. They're already seeing increased runoff there that's running across the road. And
On which, sorry, where?
I don't have the address right in front of me.
Was it
but
Howard Gleason?
Yeah, on Howard Gleason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is gonna come before us. There's
Yep.
plenty of wetlands there. These guys have plans to build a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I haven't gotten that yet, but
This-
we'll hold
this-
off on talking about it because, yeah.
These lands and all,
Um,
it's gonna be complicated.
yeah, can I just quickly just say the other updates, just that our stormwater bylaw stuff got approved. So the stormwater changes we made with making the permits 3 years have been approved. So moving forward for stormwater permits, I will be issuing a revised template that says 3-year expiration date. And then if you guys obviously have questions or comments from what we discussed in December, all the stuff is in OneDrive, and I sent you guys a calendar reminder to maybe get me edits by end of February, and then that could give me enough time to go over it with council and maybe put it on the second March meeting. So, yep, that's it.
So maybe this is the last thing to comment upon. Maybe everyone's aware, but maybe not, that Eric is resigning as
Oh,
of well, that's why he's not here tonight. So I
Is it
have,
okay?
oh yeah, he's fine. He's just
Had enough.
had enough. Yeah. Is he at year 7 or year 4?
He was 6 years.
So this is the
Potentially,
7th
I
year.
can't remember if he was an associate or not.
He was an associate with me. We started the same time.
Okay, so 7. Yeah.
The only reason I'm not up is because I took over someone's
Yes.
place.
Yeah, for an additional year.
So Eric is resigning, and I have sent a letter to promote Valerio to be a full member. And if anybody else is thinking about retiring, we're going to get Sanji bumped.
I
But-
thought, aren't we supposed to have, wait, 7, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
we
we
could
can
promote
promote
both.
both of them.
Oh,
But
we
I don't
can.
know, in the past, they've never let anyone move up except during that one period,
Mhm.
that June.
Yeah, so we'll
yeah,
see if
yeah,
they
yeah,
grant our
yeah.
request for now, or if they tell us to wait
well,
until June.
well, if we can actually, if we can do one, and if we can do that, Sanji too, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, and they may or
I'll
may
talk
not
to him.
let us. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll talk to him, see if he feels like he's ready to go, but if he's ready to go, let's have a shot at it.
Yeah, we are supposed to be a board of 7 commissioners.
So yeah, let's.
But
do
yeah,
it.
we'll see if select board takes it. The worst they can say is no, but I think they will understand the need to at least get one more because obviously, things are gonna happen and people aren't gonna be able to attend meetings and we can have quorum issues. So it's good to
Yeah.
have at least 6 people and then 7 would be fantastic. Then
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about a quorum.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Tom, you can resend your email. You have to
Good
talk-
good luck.
you want to talk to Sanjay? Do you want me to give you his number?
Yeah, send me his phone number. I'll call him tomorrow and see if
Okay.
see if he's up for it. And if he
Okay.
is, then I'll see if we can get him on the selectmen's agenda as soon as
Okay.
possible. So that, of course, raises the issue of recruitment for associates. If we're gonna
Right.
move our 2 associates to full members, then we need 2 more members as associates. So if you have any ideas, I have one. I've put out a feeler to one of my neighbors, and we'll see what he thinks. Kind of looking for people a little younger than me, like maybe 25 years younger than me. So, any of you guys that know anybody that's middle-aged instead of ancient?
I don't know who they are, but there's a landscape architect who lives in the building above, what's the name? You know where the old meat market used to be? They redid that building.
Meat market.
In the
Butcher,
village?
butcher.
Yeah, I know what a meat market is, but I only said that because there was a meat market in town before Rosangela opened.
Yes, there
Her
was.
May one.
It
There
was.
is there's that book that kind of lists people's occupations. That's
It's
Tom, I
not
think I gave that to you. I don't have an updated one, but I think I gave that to you.
Yeah,
You know the corner. It's right near the Henderson Law Office. It's that new building. It sits on South Main Street.
Oh,
right.
you're thinking about that little deli. It was a meat market too, wasn't it? I know where you're going.
Yes.
Yeah, it's across
Sorry.
from Red Lion.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway, upstairs there's a landscape architect that works
Okay.
there. I've never met her, and I can't even tell you why I know she exists. But
Okay.
she was, I don't know, she was looking for a job or something that that I heard about. That's all I know. I don't know anything
Okay.
about it.
Job that
But-
doesn't pay.
Exactly.
Well, to embellish your resume, that there's maybe payback in that, right? To show
Yeah,
you're
sure.
community engaged and
Great experience.
yeah, there's value in that.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, I would welcome any suggestions you have, or if you can actually do a
Okay.
little active recruiting yourselves, that would be great. It'd be
Try.
wonderful to see that we have a board of 9 people. Amazing. It'd give us all a chance to skip out now and then.
There you go.
Yeah.
You do know that my term is up in June.
I do.
Okay.
Have you made a decision about whether you're going to re-up?
I am not going to re-up.
Okay.
But like I said, I did one initial year and then I did 2 stints. So
Yeah.
whatever. And
Isn't your
2
son,
years
isn't your
as an
son going to
associate.
college, Chris?
What's that?
Isn't your son off to college? You're getting pretty bored.
Well, you know what? Right now, I'm not so bored because I have to get him into college. So
And then he's not going to have any money left over to do anything with his free time, so maybe you'll have to stay with us.
well, on nights when the commission goes short, you can come by Stop and Shop and see me at my night job to help pay for college.
Oh,
What, bringing in the carts from the parking lot?
Whatever they want, I'll do it.
Yeah.
There's no
Oh.
trust fund in this family.
So
college is expensive. I get it.
it's imperative then that we find 2 associates. And
Yeah.
really, so I'm really surprised to hear that we could move Sanjay up too, but Let's do it.
We'll see if the select board takes it, but I think it's worth the ask. If we're gonna try to promote Valeria, we might as well promote
I think
both.
we gotta put pressure on them. I don't
Yeah.
care what their precedents are. I
There you
mean,
go.
they need to listen to us. We don't need to listen to them.
They've also both been taking training courses. They both seem invested in very different ways. Like I told Tom this, but long story short, I spent an hour plus with Sanji this week on the phone talking about how we could potentially create like AI custom platforms that can be posted to the website where people can actively ask questions about our regulations. So like, just so they have ideas, I think both of them are really great contenders to be full members if they're willing to do it. Sounds like Valeria's already on board. So if we talk to Sanji, great. But yeah, I think they're both. Yeah.
Are we ever going back in person?
I have no idea. The state extended the
We all might
provisions until
resign if that
2025.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna be 50%er if we do that.
Yeah.
They
Well, I
did
can,
their
hey,
peril.
look, I'll babysit, I need some extra cash. I can stop by and
Charge
Yeah.
the commission
put
your
the
time.
kids to bed before you get home.
Perfect. Perfect.
Gee, if I didn't have a meadow, you could come mow my lawn. I only run my mower one day each year now.
That's good.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just read that a gas-powered leaf blower running for an hour produces the equivalent of 1,100 miles on your car
That's
in
nice.
terms of pollution.
Wow.
I've had to tell my dad to stop using that. Yeah, because I saw something similar. I was like, please
Wow.
stop blowing a leaf around the ground and wasting
Two-stroke
gas.
motors. Not good.
Yeah.
My neighbor every November tunes up his snow blower and then he goes to Florida.
Well, I got
Nice.
mine ready. I got it out of the back of my shed. It was a pain in the neck, but I got it out. I'm sure it'll start.
Yeah.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, folks.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
All right,
Good
guys.
night.
Thanks. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Have a great
Thank you,
weekend.
Charlotte.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.